Chapter 19 The World Will Know Chaos. My name is Ophis. The words echoed across the stadium with apocalyptic finality, and I have come to tell you that you're all a bunch of idiots. The words were like a proclamation of impending doom. They silenced all dissenters. Words that sat on the tip of tongues were choked back. Strangled sounds emerged from the throats of people who wanted to throw their opinions into the debate, but were no longer able to now that she'd arrived on the center stage. Everyone was silent. So, it's true. That girl really is Ophis, bucko? Rias buried her face in her hands. She felt sick to her stomach. All this time she'd been pushing Naruto away, believing that he'd gone off gallivanting with some random loli for no reason. Perhaps he had done some gallivanting, and perhaps he'd had more fun than he should have. But so what? Naruto had done this to expose a threat. Knowing him, he'd spent all that time with Ophis to try and bring her to their side. He might have gotten carried away, but it was still done to help her. I let my jealousy get the better of me. It was hard to admit it, but Rias often got jealous of how close Naruto was with some of the other girls. She'd been trying to curtail her jealousy. She knew that Naruto wouldn't betray their relationship. But when he'd arrived home with Ophis in tow, Rias had let her imagination run wild. Her jealousy toward this girl, who she didn't even know, who'd been spending time with her boyfriend while she'd nearly been killed several times, had festered in her heart, and she'd taken it out on Naruto. Akeno, do you think I'm a bad girlfriend? Akeno started at the question, her eyes widening in clear surprise. She calmed down quickly, however, and considered Rias with a keen eye. I think that what you are feeling right now is natural, Akeno said. Just like the jealousy you felt when Kitsune-kun showed up with another girl was natural. You might be our king, and you might be the heiress to one of the 72 pillars, but you're also a regular girl in high school. There's no shame in feeling jealous of someone who is close to your boyfriend. It's natural. And being upset at your boyfriend for leaving when you needed him is natural, too. Although I do feel like you took things a little too far. Yes, I suppose you're right, Rias murmured quietly before watching the events happening down on the floor unfold. What did you say? Metatron asked, his voice breathless, as if someone had punched him in the gut. Ophis frowned, but repeated her previous statement. I said that I am Ophis, and that I've come here to tell everyone that you're. There's no way a little girl like you can be Ophis. Ophis's eyes suddenly change. Normally dull orbs containing as much emotion as a doll became agitated and angry. Pressure like nothing Rias had ever felt slammed into her. It pushed her down without warning, causing her head to slam into the table. Standing beside her, Akeno's body lost all of its strength and crumpled to the floor in a rasping heap of flesh. Even her brother, Michael, and Azazel struggled to keep their posture. Sweat had broken out on their foreheads, and their breathing had grown labored. And they weren't the only ones affected. All around the room, people fell to the ground. Some lay face first on the floor, gasping for breath, drool leaking from their slack-jawed mouths. The stronger ones were forced to a knee. They clutched at their chest as if trying to keep their hearts from exploding. Several people, the young devils who'd been allowed to participate in this meeting, had already passed out in their seats. Metatron took the brunt of the onslaught. He knelt in front of Ophis, his shoulders heaving as he struggled to gain a breath that would not come. The Ouroboros dragon stared down at him, her diminutive height in no way affecting how intimidating she appeared in that moment. Even Rias, seated several meters away, with only Ophis's long black hair visible to her, felt like she was close to wetting herself. Oi! Stop that! Then Naruto smacked Ophis on the back of the head. The aura disappeared. OWCH. Ophis held her hands to her head. She looked up at Naruto and, despite how her face still remained impassive, small tears leaked out of her eyes. That hurt, she sniffled. That's what you get for unleashing your power, Naruto chastised the girl. He interrupted me, she mumbled. He's also an idiot. What did you call me? The aforementioned idiot shouted. Naruto ignored him. In any case, I believe you were going to make a point? You're going to pet my head so much after this, it wasn't a question. Sure, if that's what you want. Despite still feeling the after effects of what just happened, Rias facepalmed. Are they really talking about head petting in a dignified forum like this? Era. Akeno struggled to her feet. Her skin was ashen and sweat caused her clothes to cling to her. She looked unsettled, but she tried to play it off. That just seems to be the way your boyfriend is. My boyfriend can be a real idiot sometimes. But now no one knows what to think anymore, Akano pointed out. Look at them. They're caught between being wary of Ophus's power, wondering whether they should be afraid or appalled by what's happening, and curious about Kitsune-kun and his ability to remain unaffected by Ophus's undeniably strong presence. I get that much, Rias muttered. I just wish he wouldn't act so embarrassing in public. Fufu, you chose to date him. Big words coming from someone who's dating a pervert. Akano didn't respond to that. Ophus glanced up, nodded, then glanced back at Metatron. I have been listening to all of you talk about how peace is unachievable because none of you can get your past hatreds, and I've gotta say, you all sound stupid. No one spoke, or more like no one could speak. Ophus continued. You sit here, arguing about why you can't get along. It's like you're all trying your hardest to be belligerent. It's almost painful to watch how incredibly childish you're all acting. Ophus paused again. She looked up, nodded, then continued. There are threats out there that none of you have any idea about. Threats that could easily crush any one of your factions without much effort. They know that you've been weakened. They know that you're hurting. You might have been able to keep the information that God is dead from the general populace, but with so few miracles happening in this world, other factions have realized that something has happened, and they won't hesitate to destroy you all and expand their territory once the truth comes out. Ophus paused once more and looked up. Nodding once again, she looked back at the surrounding dignitaries and continued. Sitting on one of several balconies, Kiba, Issei, Kaneko, Revel, and Asia looked at the Naruto clone that the original had left behind. He stood near the edge of their platform, but was far enough away that no one else would see him. He was also holding several large posters in his hands. They were covered in writing. They were covered in writing that Ophus was reading from. Out loud, to everyone in the hall. Hey, are you really having Ophus read a speech that you wrote just a few seconds ago? Kiba asked, as if he couldn't quite believe what his eyes were telling him. Yes, the Naruto clone answered. Is there something wrong with that? I suppose not. Kiba didn't seem sure of his answer. It sounded almost like a question. There, you see? There's no problem. I think it's kind of funny, Issei admitted. Do you see the looks on those people's faces? They look like someone smacked them in the face with a dead fish. See that, Kiba? Issei gets it. Naruto teased. You know this is probably gonna come back to bite you in the ass later on, right? Kiba asked, sighing and holding a hand to his forehead. Maybe, but I'll burn that bridge when I get to it. You mean cross it? Kiba said. No, Naruto's eyes gleamed with amusement. Bridges were made to be burned. Down below, Metatron seemed to finally regain his second wind. He stood up, albeit warily, and eyed the childlike form of Ophus. You speak a lot about threats to which we know nothing about, yet I haven't heard of anything that could threaten us, and I've spent the last 52 years learning to be a ninja. The sound of Michael facepalming rang throughout the hall. Tell me, if these threats exist, then where are they? What could possibly threaten us? Ophus opened her mouth to speak, the Chaos Brigade. When someone else answered for her, a man appeared before them without warning. He floated above the stage where Metatron, Naruto, and Ophus stood. He was a middle-aged man with long silver hair and a beard. His armor looked almost identical to Sirzek's. Regal-looking multi-segmented pauldrons and a gleaming breastplate. Unlike Sirzek's, however, his were silver instead of red. 12 pinions of the purest black jutted from his back. Rias didn't like him. His very presence set her on edge. The hairs on the back of her neck had risen. Her skin prickled unpleasantly. Sensations of an unknown and unwanted phenomena ran down her spine. This man, she didn't know who he was, but he exuded an ungodly aura of vileness. That is what you were going to say, right? The man asked Ophus, his smile appearing almost amiable. Rizavam Lucifer, Sirzek said. The two words evoked those who remained conscious into gaping. Well, hello, Sirzek. It's been an awfully long time since we've seen each other. How've you been? Is the tyke keeping you busy? What are you doing here, Rizavam? Sirzek asked, his stern voice letting Rizavam know that he wasn't joking around. Why, I came because I heard about this wonderful gathering, of course. Rizavam spread his arms wide, encompassing everyone there. I never got an invite. I figured it got lost in transit, since I know you'd never leave me out of something like this. You've been gone for decades, and now you've decided to show up here, Sirzek continued, ignoring Rizavim's playful bantering. What are you after? Playing stroking his chin, Rizavam seemed to contemplate the question. There are many things that I'm after. Your title, your sister, your life. He smiled when Sirzex bristled at the mention of his sister. However, at the moment, if I was after anything in particular, then I would have to say it's her. Rizavam pointed to Ophis, who stared blankly at the finger. From that statement, can I take this as an admission that you're a part of the Chaos Brigade? Sirzex asked. A wide smile appeared on Rizavam's face. Why yes, I believe you can. Murmured whispers broke out amongst the delegation. Everyone knew who he was. Even if they didn't know Rizavam, they knew the name Lucifer. Lucifer. That was the name of the original Mao, the first Satan, the strongest devil. During the Great War, it was Lucifer who kept the forces of hell under control. His iron fist and ruthless ways had ensured that no one disobeyed him. Those who refused to obey, or those who spoke out against him, were not mercilessly put down. They were made an example out of. If this man is like the former Lucifer, in that case, I regret to inform you that you have intruded on a peace delegation, one in which you are not welcome. So, I see. Peace, huh? Rizavam stared at the gathered ground. Angels, devils, fallen. He eyed them all, his gaze contemptuous. It's awfully funny that you think peace can actually be achieved. It's funnier still that you, a devil, are actively pursuing peace. You let yourself become soft, Sirzex, though perhaps I'm making a misnomer. You always were a soft-hearted person. How someone like you could ever be a devil is beyond me. Sirzex made several silent gestures with his hands. Rias couldn't understand what they meant, but apparently, Michael and Azazel did. She could feel the mild surge of energy coming from them. Were they preparing to attack? However, I'm not here to talk to you, Rizavam said, turning back to the little girl standing by Naruto. Ophis, I believe you've had enough fun for now. It is time for you to come back with me. Ophis frowned at the man. I am not coming back. I have decided to stay with Naruto. Naruto? Rizavam frowned, his eyes panning to the blonde, who met his gaze evenly. Ah, yes. I remember now. Naruto is the one that you've been trying to locate for nearly a year now, wasn't it? The one who tore a hole through the dimensional gap. Rias winced as more mutters broke out. They'd been trying to keep that a secret for a reason. Naruto stepped in front of Ophis. Sorry, but Ophis isn't going back with you. She's with me now. Naruto's smile caused his whiskers to stretch, giving him a truly vulpine appearance. And I'll beat the shit out of anyone who tries to take her from me. Rias knew that Naruto didn't mean that in a romantic way. She really did. But, in that moment, she really wanted to hit him for saying something that could be so easily misconstrued. Rizavam chuckled. Is that right? Well, I suppose in a straight-up battle of power, you could very well defeat me. He snapped his fingers. However, who said anything about me fighting you fair and square? Or at all, for that matter? Wah! A dark crimson magic circle appeared underneath Naruto. Rias's eyes widened. She recognized what that was. A teleportation spell. What is this? Naruto mumbled. No, Rias, wait. Before anyone could do anything, Rias leapt out of her seat, rushed across the room, and pushed a confused Naruto out of the way. Naruto landed on his backside. He looked up at her, his eyes wide and confused. She smiled. Her mouth opened to speak, but in that moment, just before she could talk, the world around her disappeared. And all she saw was darkness. Devil Ninja, Naruto couldn't believe his eyes. Rias had disappeared. She'd been standing right in front of him, but now she wasn't there anymore. She'd pushed him out of the way of that teleportation circle. She was gone, having been transported to wherever that circle led to. Well, now, this isn't good, Rizavam said, mostly to himself, though he didn't sound very distressed. That circle was meant specifically to teleport Naruto away, not the wench of the Gremory family. Rage boiled inside of him. Naruto thought he heard something break, a dam, where all of his darkest emotions, those same emotions that he'd accepted when training to use Kurama's chakra, had gone. Where is she? Naruto asked, his voice harsh and grating. I wouldn't worry about that. Rizavam dismissed Naruto's anger. You and everyone else have much bigger problems to worry about now. At that moment, the walls and ceiling exploded in a million fragments, showering the interior like drizzled rain mixed with falling meteors. A threnody of frightened voices screamed as they were buried under several dozen tons of rubble. Many people were squashed flat, their bodies crushed. Those who'd already experienced war proved their mettle, pulling out weapons or channeling magic and destroying the debris that tried to crush them. Naruto snarled as the ceiling descended toward him. He thrust out his hands and channeled massive amounts of wind chakra into them. 2 large tornadoes shot from his fists, engulfing everything above him and tearing the ceiling fragments apart. When the technique dispersed, Naruto glared at where Rizavum should have been. He was no longer there. Jerkwad must have used the rubble as cover to escape. With the ceiling gone and many of the walls crumbling around them, everyone was given a first-hand glimpse of the pandemonium outside. The angels, fallen, and devils who'd been tasked with guarding the delegation were locked in combat against a myriad of individuals. Mages wearing purple cloaks threw spells at their flying foes. Devils tore through the sky, fighting their brethren, tearing them apart with a surprise attack. Caught unawares, many of the devils and fallen guarding the delegation were killed, their wings torn off, their bodies sent hurtling to the ground. Several mages tried to attack the delegates, but a large beam of crimson darkness cut through them, annihilating the entire swarm before they could launch a single attack. It was Sirzex, cutting through swaths of enemies like a scythe cuts through wheat. His hands were covered in the power of destruction, which he used to far greater effect than Ryusuke, controlling the dark power with incredible skill and finesse. Naruto didn't know what to do. His thoughts were consumed by Ryus. Yet even while his thoughts were overtaken with worry for Ryus, he still had the peace of mind to use the substitution jutsu, replacing himself with a log when an enemy devil tried to skewer him with a large broadsword. Before the devil even had a chance to realize that he'd missed, Naruto appeared behind him and killed the devil with a Rasengan to the back, blasting him into the antechamber floor. A large dome suddenly sprang up around the delegation chamber, a golden barrier of incandescent light, crackling with arcane power. The barrier was obviously divine in nature, and the casters became obvious when Naruto glanced at the table. Michael and Gabrielle stood with their hands thrust out, palms facing the sky. Several devils tried to cut through the barrier, but they were killed instantly, their bodies fried by the holy power coruscating along the golden shield's surface. You are a shinobi," Metatron exclaimed in surprise. Naruto blinked. It took him a moment to realize that Metatron must have seen him use the substitution jutsu. Yes. Yes, I am." Naruto ignored the shocked Metatron and searched for Ophis. He found her standing several feet from the devil he'd killed. She appeared untroubled by the chaos happening around her. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I am fine," Ophis said, observing him with her calm gaze. "You are not fine." "No," Naruto admitted. "No, I'm not. Everybody, calm down," Sirzex shouted into chaos of hundreds of panicking individuals. His voice rang above everyone else's. "We're beginning the evacuation process. Those of you who cannot fight, please follow me to the portal gates. Guards, help those who've been injured. Get them to a healer, then escort them to the portal gates after me." The devil guards saluted and immediately rushed to carry out Sirzek's order. They blasted apart debris and lifted those who'd been crushed, carrying them either to an angel or a devil healer, depending on their species. They didn't discriminate either, helping out everyone regardless of whether they were angel, devil or fallen. Sirzex had chosen his soldiers well. "My fellow fallen angels, help our devil comrades protect and evacuate the civilians," Azazel ordered. The fallen guards who'd been inside when the attack happened pounded their fists to their chest in a salute. Then they went to work. Side by side with devils, they helped gather injured delegates and bring them to a healer. The earth suddenly rumbled. A massive buildup of energy crashed into the barrier, vile purple matter that caused cracks to appear along its surface. They spread quickly, covering the entire dome. Michael and Gabrielle fell to a knee as they poured more energy into the shield, however, it was all for naught. With the sound of shattering glass, the barrier was destroyed, and several figures descended to the ground. There were 3 of them. All of them were devils, that much was clear. Black pinions jutted from their backs, devil wings, darker than midnight and reminiscent to those of a bat's. The one in front was a bespectacled woman with a voluptuous body and an arrogant sneer. To her left, a long man with pale skin, pointed ears and black hair tied into a ponytail glared at everyone in the room. On the right, a man with long hair that went down to his hip and covered his left eye stood, his armor darker than crow feathers and his shoulders covered by a cape. My, what a disgusting group, the woman in front said. Devils cavorting with angels and the fallen. How low has our species become? Kateria, Seraphal Leviathan, Sona's older sister, looked at the woman in shock. What are you doing? The woman, Kateria, sneered. Seraphal, the little slut who stole my title. How dare you speak to me so familiarly? Seraphal's eyes went wide. She took a step back, as if the vitriol in Kateria's voice had been a physical blow. Let's hurry up and kill these pretenders, the one on the left said. I'll take on the fallen leader, said the one on the right. Oh ho! Azazel laughed as he stepped in front of Seraphal. So, Shalba Beelzebub thinks he has what it takes to defeat me. How amusing. You won't be so amused when I rip your face off. Before anyone else could speak, an overwhelmingly massive pressure shoved them into the ground. Earth's gravity appeared to have increased to 10 times what it normally was. Cracks appeared along the ground as several people fell to their knees. Fortunately, the feeling radiating from the power wasn't malignant, just angry. Naruto had been listening to the conversation for a while now. He understood what was going on, but honestly, he couldn't have cared less about the Chaos Brigade and their petty desires right now. There was only thing on his mind. Where is Rias Gremory? He asked the group of devils who'd intruded upon this place. Our Rias Gremory? Kateria put on a brave front, adjusting her glasses and giving him a scrutinizing gaze. I see, so Rizavam failed to take care of you, and Rias Gremory took your place. That is most unfortunate. Do not worry, though. Her lips twisted into an unpleasant smile. I am sure that, at this moment, your little girlfriend is receiving the hospitality of the hero faction. Naruto sucked in a breath. The hero faction hated devils. Rias Gremory was a devil of the highest caliber, an heiress of the 72 pillars. There was no telling what they would do to her. Where are they? Where have you taken her? I would watch your tongue if I were you. Boy, Shalba snarled. There is no need for us to tell you anything. That little cunt is probably already. Naruto had heard enough. Seemingly moving faster than light itself, Naruto appeared in front of Shalba and punched him in the face. Hard. The older man all but vanished, and only the wall exploding in front of Naruto let everyone know what had happened. He just punched Shalba through a wall, Michael muttered. Shalba was supposed to be my opponent, Azazel mumbled. Oh, dear, Gabrielle said, sounding mildly worried, though for who was anyone's guess. Naruto snarled as he rushed out of the broken antechamber. All around him devils, fallen, and angels battled against members of the Chaos Brigade. Light spears flew through the air. Magic circles appeared all around him. Explosions rocked the earth and sky. Naruto ignored them and rushed at Shalba just as the older man was getting up. You little shit, do you think you can get away with? Shut up. Naruto slammed a knee into the man's jaw. There was a very loud crack, as the jaw shattered. Shalba opened his mouth to scream, but Naruto kicked him in the chest, punting him across the ground. The older devil rolled across the earth, kicking up dirt and dust in his wake. Shalba stopped only after being a rag doll for several meters. He clambered to his feet, blood leaking from his scowling mouth. His eyes were shot with blood. You piece of fucking. Crack. Shalba's nose broke as Naruto trapped his head in a clinch and slammed a knee into his face. Blood sprayed from his broken nose, a geyser of arterial fluids that painted the muddy earth red. Stumbling back, Shalba growled and created a magic circle in front of him. The circle glowed brightly, only to shatter when Naruto drove a Rasengan through it. Gra! The swirling blue ball of chakra slammed into Shalba's face and sent the old Satan devil flying. Several fights were broken up when his body plowed through them. He soared across the field, then crashed into the treeline. A large trench had been dug into the ground. It spanned nearly 4 meters in width, and was probably 10 times that amount in length. Naruto walked through the trench he'd made of the treeline, using Shalba as the catalyst for the massive amount of vegetative destruction. Most of the trees had been outright uprooted, some had also shattered, and their fragments littered the desecrated ground. Shalba Beelzebub stood at the end of the trench. His forehead was bleeding. Blood dripped into his left eye, which he'd closed. His once regal black armor was dented, and his cape had torn apart at the seams. Where did that teleportation circle take Rias Gremory? Naruto asked again. Like I'd ever tell you, snarling like a vicious animal, Shalba palmed a device in his hand. Several light spears suddenly appeared, as if they'd been brought forth from the ether. They hovered in the air, buzzing and thrumming, and then they flew at Naruto like arrows shot from a bow. While he could have called upon Kurama for help, he didn't want to use his friend's power while he was this angry. He'd never allow Kurama's power to be used for his own selfish desires. He'd definitely never use it when his thoughts were filled with rage like they were now. He wove around the spears, dodging them via quick application of several shunshuns. The spears continued on, striking the ground and exploding on contact, vaporizing everything. Naruto ignored this and closed the distance between him and Shalba. "Don't think I'm gonna let you keep hitting me," Shalba growled. Two light swords appeared, one in each hand, their blades curved like a falchion. He wielded both weapons like a master, gracefully swinging and spinning around each weapon at a different angle. Naruto scowled as he was forced back. While he could overpower most light-based attacks with his chakra, Shalba was using that device to turn his own devil magic into a light-based power. Naruto felt that, between the two of them, he was the stronger one. However, Shalba was not lacking in magic power. His reserves were quite immense, more so than Kokebeel's power had been, and it meant that Naruto couldn't simply overpower him. "Naruto, are you sure that you don't want to use my power? Don't tempt me." Naruto clenched his teeth. "I don't want to break my promise, but if you ask me that again." Naruto had promised Kurama long ago, before they'd shown up in this world, that he would never use Kurama's powers for selfish reasons. Right now, Naruto was being selfish. He could hear the sounds of battle being raged behind him. Innocents were dying, and his friends were likely in need of his help. But he couldn't bring himself to help them. His every thought was consumed with the desire to help Rias, his girlfriend, the woman who'd given him a purpose in this world. "I understand. In that case, kick his ass, Naruto. Don't let a prick like that get the best of you." "I don't plan on it." Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A dozen Narutos appeared as if out of thin air. Shalba growled and rained light arrows into the horde of clones. All of them went up in several puffs of smoke, which blocked Naruto from Shalba's sight. Unfortunately for Shalba, Naruto could see him just fine. Rasengan. Blood spilled from Shalba's mouth like sludge as he went flying for the third time. While he was sailing through the air, Naruto appeared underneath him and planted his feet into Shalba's back, launching him upwards. Shalba regained control over his flight and created a massive light spear that he sent at Naruto, who swerved as he ascended into the air. The spear passed him by several inches. Then it exploded into several dozen smaller spears, all of which tried to perforate Naruto from behind. Spinning around, Naruto created a magic circle in front of him and fed both his devil powers and chakra into it. The result was a large tornado of wind that burst out of it, which collided with the spears to catastrophic effect. A large shockwave of power spread from the explosion of polar opposite forces. Light versus dark. Devil versus holy. The two powers negated each other, but in a way that was almost cataclysmic. Shalba was nearly blasted from the sky as the shockwave slammed into him. Unlike the ancestor of Beelzebub, Naruto rode the shockwave, ignoring the searing pain of light energy burning his flesh. He crashed into his foe with a flying spin kick. Unprepared for such a maneuver, Shalba was spun like a top, his face almost caving in from the power Naruto put behind his attack. He tried to stop his spin, but then Naruto launched a heel drop to the top of his head. The ground cratered as Shalba crashed into it. Rather than give his enemy time to recover, Naruto zoomed down while Shalba was trying to sit up and shoved his feet into Shalba's gut. The man folded like a chair. Bile, blood and mucus flew from his mouth, which soon snapped shut with a loud clack, when Naruto kicked him in the jaw. Shalba groaned as he hit the ground. Naruto didn't give him any reprieve and lifted the man up by the throat. "Where did that teleportation circle take Rias Gremory?" he asked again. "Go, fuck yourself, you damn reincarnated filth." Naruto snarled and slammed Shalba into the ground. The devil tried to scream, but Naruto's vice grip around his throat kept anything more than a gurgle from escaping. Using his other hand, Naruto gripped Shalba's head and began to squeeze. "Kurama, do you know how to read minds? There is a way to read his mind. It is similar to the Yamanaka technique. Follow my instructions very carefully." Naruto listened to Kurama's instructions, and then followed them to the letter. Shalba's agonized shrieks echoed across the forest. Contrary to what Kurama said, the mind-reading technique that he had in mind was nothing like the Yamanaka clan technique. Where that one required finesse, this one was all brute force. Where that one subtly slipped through the cracks, with the one being interrogated remaining completely unaware, this one slammed into the mind with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Naruto forced his way into Shalba's mind, uncaring of the damage that he was doing. And while in there, ripping apart Shalba's mind, Naruto found his answer. I see. So, Rias Gremory is being kept in the gap between this world and the dimensional gap. I can tear a hole through this dimension and reach the gap, Kurama informed him. And before you complain about promising not to use my power for selfish reasons, this is not you using my power. This is me using my power to help a friend. Nothing more. I see. Thank you. Naruto go of Shalba, who cried out as he hit the ground, then proceeded to crab walk away from the blonde. Understand this, Shalba Beelzebub, Naruto said. His voice as unbending as steel. If you ever come near my friends, if you or your people even think about hurting the people who are dear to me, then I will make sure that you don't live long enough to regret it. Shalba Beelzebub gnashed his teeth together until blood poured from his mouth. You, how dare a lowly reincarnated devil like you speak to me like that? You're a curse. Your entire race is a curse. You and every other reincarnated devil have poisoned our kind with your soft ways. I won't stand for it. One of these days, you and I will meet again, and I will destroy you and everything you hold dear. With one last shout of defiance, Shalba Beelzebub disappeared, vanishing within a teleportation circle. An emergency teleportation circle. Clever, cowardly, Naruto countered. Are you sure it was wise to let him go? You really are too soft sometimes, Naruto. Naruto didn't know how to answer that, so he said nothing. Naruto, at that moment, someone ran up to him. She was a familiar face, one that he hadn't seen since the Kokebeel incident. Irina, Naruto greeted. Irina Shido looked the same as always. Golden brown hair tied together in long pigtails. Amethyst eyes that were vibrant and bright. The only difference between now and the last time they met was the look on her face. That grim expression someone had when they were in the middle of a war. Michael-sama and the others asked me to find you, Irina said. They said that you need to come back. They need you to help them protect everyone. Naruto closed his eyes. Please tell everyone else that I'm sorry, but I can't go back just yet. What? Opening his eyes, Naruto gave Irina his most serious expression. I can't come back until I've rescued Rias. Naruto had expected many things: shock, denial, a refusal to let him go off and play the hero. Irina's bright smile was not what he'd expected. They said you would say that, so they asked me to help you find Rias Gremory and return only when you were with me. You're coming with me? Yep, Irina winked at him. And don't think you can stop me. These orders come from the great Michael-sama himself. Oh, Michael-sama. Irina clasped her hands in prayer. To think you would entrust me with such a task. I won't fail you. Naruto stared at the girl. Maybe it was just him, but she seemed to be sparkling. He shook his head, shrugging off her strange behavior and deciding to accept her help. Thank you for helping me out, Naruto said. I do have a favor to ask you before we leave, however. What's that? The people who are holding Rias hostage are all very powerful, Naruto started. I would not be lying to say that each person we'll be fighting has the same power as a high-class super devil. As you are right now, I do not believe you will be able to fight them. Are you saying I'm weak? Irina frowned. Not at all. I'm saying that the people we're fighting are simply that powerful. Only someone with the same strength as Kokebeel would stand a chance against them. Naruto penetrated Irina with the fiercest stare he had. He needed to let her know how serious he was about this. That's why I'm asking you to get Rias out of there and leave the fighting to me. Irina seemed pensive at first, but slowly nodded. Good. Wait. A voice called out. Naruto blinked. Irina blinked. They both turned to see Revel flying toward them on wings of fire. Flying beside her was Kaneko. The two girls landed on the ground and looked imploringly at Naruto. We're coming, too. It was Naruto's turn to seem pensive. I don't know if that's a good idea. Why not? Revel asked, pouting. I can help, I can be useful to you. Don't push us away, Kaneko added, her tone almost dispassionate, though anyone who knew her could sense her desire to stay with him. Naruto knew that he had to make a decision quickly. Every second he spent here was another second Rias spent at the hero faction's mercy. He couldn't afford to delay. Alright. You two and Irina will be in charge of getting Rias to safety, then. Is that good? Yes. Naruto breathed out a deep breath. Okay, then let's go. Kurama. Right. Kurama externalized his power, which manifested as a dark red flame. A cut appeared in front of Naruto. A thin line seeping with darkness. The cut widened, the fabrics of the dimension they lived in tearing apart at the seams. What lay beyond was darkness, a world without light. Naruto strode into the tear, Revel and Kaneko and Irina walking by his side. Once they entered, the void closed behind them, leaving no trace of their passage. Devil Ninja, the fighting had grown heavy. Pandemonium reigned throughout the entire academy. Buildings had been reduced to rubble, nothing more than barely standing walls and caved-in ceilings. Bodies lay strewn across the battlefield. Angels, devils, and fallen, their figures twisted at awkward angles, like half-finished pretzels. Blood coated the ground, staining the once pristine floors and green grass carmine. Issei was in the middle of this chaotic throng of death. He and the other members of Rias Gremory's peerage had been tasked with helping defend the civilians as they were evacuated. Unfortunately, that seemed to paint a large target on their backs. Take this, you bastards! Dragon shot. An orb of light formed in front of Issei's gauntlet. He made a fist and punched it. A giant beam of energy lanced out at the flock of devils attacking them, engulfing them in a bright radiance. When the beam faded out, several dozen charred corpses plummeted to the ground, thumping against the blood-stained floor. It's a good thing this building is already destroyed, Xenovia mumbled, or that attack would have caused some serious property damage. That's eyes for you, Kiba replied. He takes after Naruto when it comes to causing destruction during a fight, though I think Naruto has a little more finesse than Eyes does. Right. Boost. Here we go. Issei attacked his enemies with near reckless zeal. He slipped through their defenses and pummeled them with his boosted gear. Several devils tried to outmaneuver him, but Xenovia and Kiba stood on either side, using their superior sword work to keep any and all enemies from flanking Issei. Behind them, Akano fired off bolts of lightning, protecting her companions with long-range attacks, and behind her stood Asia, who acted as their healer. The horde of enemies was beaten back. Unable to withstand their combined resilience, the devils who'd slipped away from the main battle were mercilessly crushed. Boost. We can do this. Boost. We can win. Boost. Issei felt confidence surge through him. They could do this. They could win. Boost. Over booster. A long sword jutted from the boosted gear. Issei thrust it forward, causing it to split into multiple segments that resembled a dragon's tail. It coiled around several enemies and dug into their flesh, cutting them apart with ease. The sword continued to elongate, continued to separate, and continued to attack. Some enemies were pierced, others were sliced apart, but all of them felt pain. That's showing them eyes. Kiba cheered as he dove into the hole made by Issei's attack. His demonic holy sword was a blur as he sliced apart devils and fallen like wheat before a scythe. An arm was cut off when one devil came to close. A fallen lost her leg when she tried to attack Issei. 6 enemies went down as Kiba used his speed to race by them, cutting them apart with ease. Xenovia followed after him. Unlike Kiba, who was all speed and finesse, she was pure brute force. Durandal sang as it unleashed devastation upon those around her. The bodies of her enemies weren't sliced apart, but outright destroyed. No one could stand against her. I think we can actually win this, Xenovia said, her tone hopeful. With their opponents overwhelmed and the civilians beating a hasty retreat, Issei and the others felt hope swell within their breasts. That hope was soon dashed with the beating of 6 monstrous wings. Devil Ninja. The first sensation that returned to Rias after waking up was pain. It wasn't the kind of pain that came from being stabbed or punched. Her body simply ached, like when you spent hours exercising and your body was trying to heal itself. She'd become intimately familiar with that feeling, though what she felt now was slightly different. Tell me again why we're not just killing her, a voice asked. Because bait is only good if it's still alive. Besides, she can be of better use to us alive than dead. Rias opened her eyes, but all she saw was darkness. She blinked several times. Her eyes didn't adjust. there was still darkness. That's when she realized that it wasn't because she couldn't see, but because wherever she was didn't have any light. Turning her head, Rias found several figures standing about a meter away. There were 3 men and 1 woman. She didn't recognize any of them. "Oh, she's awake," the woman said, her beautiful face marred by an ugly sneer that seemed somehow cheerful. "Hello there, Red Devil Tan." "Who are you?" Rias asked. "Do you really think that we'd answer you?" A hulking, brute of a man growled at her. "We have no reason to answer any of your questions, filthy devil." Narrowing her eyes, Rias tried to channel her magic, tried, and failed. "Don't bother," another man said calmly. "You won't be able to use any of your powers unless we decide to let you use them." His impassive gaze bothered Rias immensely, his words even more so, but she didn't say anything. Without knowing what was going on, acting rashly would be foolish. The best she could do right now was bide her time, and try to figure out what they had done to separate her from her power. Hoping to analyze the people who'd apparently kidnapped her, she studied the group. One of the men was a towering mountain of muscle. He appeared to be more of a lackey than anything, so she skipped over him. The young man standing next to him had silver hair and carried himself with a refined aura. He reminded Rias of Kiba in that regard, though his cold eyes were nothing like her knight's. Standing a little apart from the two was the woman, a beautiful blonde whose arrogant sneer made her seem uglier than she should have been. Despite her sneer, she seemed to enjoy teasing the two, calling the silver-haired one Sieg-kun, and the big one, Herc-chan. While those 3 all had a powerful aura about them, it was the one who remained silent that she felt the most wary of. Handsome and dark-haired, the young man wore a Japanese school uniform. Combined with the uniform was ancient Chinese attire. Held in his right hand was a spear, which caused the feeling of her unease. She didn't know what sort of weapon it was, but she could tell that it was a sacred gear of great power. "He's here," the one she'd been staring at said, his head turning as he spoke. "Who's here?" Everyone turned to see a figure walking toward them. Flanking this person on either side were 3 of people. Rias craned her neck to get a better look. Her eyes widened in surprise, hope, joy, and more than a little worry, when she saw who'd come. Striding toward them with a look that she'd never seen on his face before was Naruto. Devil Ninja. Naruto was finding himself angry more often than not these days. He'd been angry when he'd returned to Ko and discovered his friends under attack. That time, he'd been angry at Kokabiel and himself. Kokabiel for daring to attack his loved ones, and himself for having not arrived until the last moment. Now he felt anger again. These people had kidnapped Rias, the girl he loved, the person who'd given him a purpose. They had taken her from him, and were using her as bait to lure him out. Naruto had felt anger plenty of times. When people had made fun of his dreams about becoming Hokage, when people underestimated him, when people looked down on him and treated him like garbage, he'd gotten angry. He'd felt anger when Konoha had been destroyed by pain. He'd felt anger when Kokabiel attacked his friends. And now he felt anger as he stared at the group responsible for kidnapping someone important to him. "Looks like that stinking devil, Rizavam, was right," Heracles said, grinning. "He did come." "Naruto," Rias muttered from where she lay, her form prone. She'd been wrapped in cloth of some kind. Naruto sensed faint magical powers emanating from it, and he could barely sense Rias at all. It was obviously designed to keep her from utilizing her powers of destruction by suppressing her magic. "Sao Sao," Naruto's voice was calm, a facade to mask his emotions. "I'm only going to give you this one warning. Release Rias now, or I will shove my foot so far up your ass that you'll never walk straight again." "Who the hell do you think you are?" Heracles roared and charged at Naruto, who remained where he was. "You think you can threaten us like that? I'm gonna teach you a lesson." "Heracles," Sao Sao shouted in alarm. "Don't act recklessly, we need to surround him and—" Heracles didn't listen. He had already thrown the first punch. The area around Naruto was engulfed in an explosion. Heracles laughed as Naruto disappeared from his sight. "You're not very bright, are you?" a voice asked from behind Heracles. Eyes bulging like a pair of grapefruits, Heracles spun around. "Doof," and was sent flying off when he received a fist to the face. "Herc-chan," Jean shouted. "Damn pervert, you're not gonna get away with that." A holy sword appeared in Jean's hand, a large broadsword with silver etchings and a golden hilt. It was a beautiful sword fit for a queen. The diamond pommel glistened within the darkness of the gap between dimensions. The woman charged at him. Cao Cao shouted at her stop, and when she didn't, he swore and turned to Siegfried. "Guard the Gremory girl, I'll help Jean deal with this one." "Very well. He's not a holy sword user, so a battle with him would be boring anyway." Naruto stood, silently watching Jean and Cao Cao flank him. They attacked from two different sides at the same time, a pincer maneuver. For a move that was made on the spot, it had been executed rather flawlessly. Too bad Naruto wasn't there. He disappeared just as they swung their weapons, causing them to nearly skewer each other. "What?" Two shouts came simultaneously as Naruto disappeared in a puff of smoke. Rasengan. Even when shocked, Jean still reacted when Naruto appeared behind her. She spun around, moving her blade and striking the Rasengan in his hand. While still a human and therefore physically weak, her holy sword proved more than up to the task of slicing through the Rasengan in Naruto's hand, cutting it up like a warm knife slicing through Swiss cheese. Naruto disappeared, then another Naruto burst from the smoke and launched her into the air with a swift uppercut. That Naruto ducked down while another one used him as a springboard, leaping up to kick her higher into the air. He was intercepted by Cao Cao, who expertly spun his spear around and sliced through him. More smoke clouded their vision as the Naruto clone dispersed. "What kind of power is this?" Jean asked, surprised. "The kind of power that only a ninja can wield," Naruto shouted from above. Uzumaki heel drop. Since they were both airborne, neither Jean nor Cao Cao could do much when two Narutos dropped from above them. They could only raise their weapons to block, which resulted in them both flying back to what made up the ground in this place. Both landed lightly on their feet, only to find Naruto standing between them, a tornado of power surrounding his fists. "This technique is still experimental," he said, grinning. "Let me know how it feels." Neither of them had time to do much as Naruto punched them at the same time, and they were both blasted off their feet and sent hurtling through the void. Devil Ninja. Away from the battle between Naruto, Jean, Cao Cao, and Heracles, Revel and Irina and Kaneko attacked Siegfried, who'd been left to guard Rias. They attacked in unison. Revel from up high and Kaneko from below. Fire and Senjutsu energy tried to angle Siegfried who, with a slash of his sword, cut their attacks apart. Balmung. Dark steel formed into a drill-like edge. Gleaming black like midnight made manifest. Balmung. A mythical sword of Norse mythology. It was a weapon of implacable power. Even from a distance, the aura it manifested could be felt by everyone, ferocious and surging, like an unending hurricane of force gale winds. Irina released a battle cry as she charged forward and attacked with Excalibur Mimic. It was met by Balmung, the great sword of Norse mythology, blocking it easily. "Oh, it's a holy sword user." Siegfried sounded quite pleased. His eyes lit up with sadistic glee. "How positively lovely, tch." Siegfried jumped back when several energy spheres almost slammed into him. They missed and dissipated harmlessly, but that small distraction was enough for Irina to charge back in with her sword swinging. She tried to split him open from left hip to right shoulder. Siegfried backpedaled and blocked with his sword. Balmung grinding against Excalibur Mimic. Sparks flying as they traded a series of impeccably timed blows. "You're not very strong, are you?" Siegfried asked, disappointed. Irina gritted her teeth and leapt back. Excalibur Mimic changed from a sword to a whip, which she used to lash at Siegfried, who wove around her attacks with ease. Kaneko came in during this time, hoping to use Siegfried's distracted state to attack him. Yet even while distracted, the silver-haired swordsman proved to be more than capable of dodging her. He sidestepped the girl, who flew past him and was forced to use her wings to halt her forward momentum. Then he thrust Balmung forward, which created a massive tornado of wind that crashed against Kaneko and sent her flying through the void. "Kaneko!" Irina shouted in worry, only for her worry to prove unfounded when Kaneko flew back towards Siegfried like a bullet, slamming into him with a powerful heel kick that sent him flying in turn. While Irina and Kaneko fought against Siegfried, Revel flew over to Rias. Fire flared to life in her hand and transformed into a sword, which she used to cut Rias from her bonds. Now that she was no longer tied up, Rias shifted until she stood right side up, then pulled Revel into a hug. "Thank you for your help." "It was nothing," Revel mumbled, her face gently resting on Rias' soft bosoms. Well, then, why don't we help Irina and Kaneko? Ria suggested, her eyes gaining a dangerous glint. I need to pay these people back for kidnapping me. Devil Ninja. The beating of 6 massive wings brought a halt to most of the fights. It tore through the battlefield, 6 wings keeping it aloft and creating massive bursts of wind that caused everyone to lose control of their flight. 3 reptilian heads roared in unison. Leathery lips peeled back to reveal layers of sharp teeth. Horns curved and sloped over the heads and down their elongated necks, which were attached to a single massive body of sinewy muscle. Dark scales shone like obsidian, and claws the size of a person were attached to gigantic 4 limbs. Azzy-Dahaka had arrived. Azzy-Dahaka, an evil dragon well known in Iranian mythology. Otherwise known as Zahak, the 3-headed, 6-winged dragon, the son of Angromainu. He came, piercing the sky with his roar. DDRAIG. Where are you, Red Dragon Emperor? Come out. Come out so I can finally slay you and have my revenge. Several angels and fallen shot spears of light at the dragon, but numerous magic circles appeared in front of it. The spears slammed into the circles, which had created a barrier that they couldn't penetrate. The circles then changed. They were no longer a shield, but an attack spell. Hundreds of fireballs shot from the circles. Brilliant white spheres of fire that honed on everyone near the dragon. Many tried to escape, but the fire followed them relentlessly, catching up to them and swallowing them whole. When the fire dispersed, not even ashes remained. The massive dragon ignored the flies he killed and continued his search, zeroing in on the familiar scent of his mortal enemy. Diedrich. I'm coming for you. A massive light spear erupted from underneath Azzy-Dahaka. It smashed against a magic circle and broke apart before it could reach him. Azzy then launched his own attack, a giant cone of fire that shot from the magic circle, and at the figure who dared to pester him when he was on a mission. Metatron, a being with luminescent wings of light, flew away from the attack, avoiding it. He darted in and out of the fire that chased after him, trying to consume him. He was so busy dodging that he didn't even see the gigantic claw until it had swatted him out of the air. Metatron crashed into the academy grounds, plowing through dirt and grass before rolling to a stop, his body a twisted heap. HMPH. Fool. No mere angel can stand up against a dragon of my caliber. Go back to your gilded halls and cower as your world crumbles around you. After turning his attention away from the downed angel, Azzy continued his search. Swarms of enemies came at him and were charred. Even allies weren't spared from his destruction. What did he care if a few hundred humans, devils, or fallen were felled by his hands? The traitorous members of the Chaos Brigade meant nothing to him. Let them all die, it wouldn't make a difference. Amidst all this chaos, Azzy finally discovered the one he was searching for. It was a young man in a school uniform. He didn't look like much, but the palpable aura of the Red Dragon Emperor unmistakably clung from him, like a foul odor that remained in your nose long after it should have dissipated. There you are. He descended to the earth, crushing several people underneath his massively clawed hands. Impressions were left in the ground as he stalked forward, powerful muscles rippling with every movement. Diedrich. Azzy spoke the name with indescribable hatred and undeniable greed. The one he stalked stumbled backwards as the earth shook. Azzy's lips peeled back in a feral smile that revealed rows of sharp teeth. Boost. At least we meet again, but to think, you would have been reduced to such a pitiful state. Fortunate must favor me indeed. Boost. Several spears of light exploded off Azzy's body. Nothing happened. No damage was received, not a single cut or scratch could be seen on his nearly indestructible hide. Boost. More spears came at him. 16 magic circles appeared, one for each light spear thrown. Fireballs burst out, roaring like demons doomed to eternal damnation. They sought those who threw the light spears with the ferocity of rabid dogs, not letting up until they'd finally caught their prey within a fiery embrace that consumed their bodies. Boost. Azzy hadn't even looked away from the frightened Issei. Unlike many other dragons, who would let their pride get in the way of their revenge, I shall not be so foolish. Diedrich, I will take my revenge on you here and now by killing your vessel and shattering what remains of your soul. Boost. Like hell we'd let you kill Eyes. Kiba rushed in and swung his demonic holy sword at Azzy, who didn't even flinch as the weapon clanged off his bulky frame. In return, Azzy swatted Kiba away like a fly. The blonde swordsman flew through the air and crashed through a wall, which crumbled around him. "Kiba!" Issei shouted. "Damn you, boost, stay back," Issei, Xenovia ordered. "Keep boosting, that's our only hope of beating this thing." Issei gritted his teeth. He looked like he wanted to argue, but he must have known how poor their chances of survival were. He backed down. "Boost. HPMH. Fire licked the ground as one of Aziz's heads snorted. "Pathetic. Humans, devils, fallen. You are all the same. Spineless beings who cower before those stronger than you." "We'll see who's the coward," Xenovia roared. "Now." A Kano swooped down from the sky. Lightning arced from her fingertips and leapt at one of the dragon's many heads. It exploded, crackling and engulfing the head. "Boost. Ha ha ha." The dragon laughed. He was unharmed. "You call that lightning?" Azzy scoffed. "Allow me to show you what true lightning is, little girl." Boost. A giant magic circle appeared near the head that Akano had attacked. "Akano-sama. Get out of there," Issei shouted to no avail. Boost. Lightning leapt from the circle and hit Akano before she even had time to move. Her body arched as it was overcome with unimaginable pain. Flesh charred. Muscles spasmed. Akino's wings were no longer capable of holding her up, and she fell to the ground. "Akano-sama." Issei broke formation, ignoring Xenovia shouting at him. Wings jutted from his back, expanding to their full span. He leapt into the air. Two of Aziz's three heads tried to take a bite out of him, but he wove through them. The third head was aiming at the falling Akano, its mouth open and a giant magic circle in front of it, clearly preparing to finish the girl. "I have to make it." Arcs of arcane energy bubbled within the circle. Issei could practically see the build-up of energy. Whatever this dragon was going to unleash, it was going to be big. "Come on," Akano was helpless. Her body, charred and black, resembled a lifeless corpse. She fell through the sky, right in front of Aziz's mouth. "I'm not going to lose her to you, Boost, over Booster, Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker." Issei would never be able to describe what came over him in that moment. It was like a dam of limitless power had burst forth. It poured out of him like a broken sieve. Armor appeared on his chest. A breastplate of the purest crimson, centered around a bright green gem. Segments jutted from the plate, moving across his body, traveling down his arms and legs, covering him in tiny ridges. His vision became covered by a reptilian faceplate, a helmet. And there was something else, an added appendage that he could feel where before there was none. A long tail with spiky protrusions and a tip akin to a flail. With the extra power coursing through him, Issei put on a burst of speed that made his body feel like it was being squashed by 100 times Earth's normal gravity. He gritted his teeth as he nearly crashed into Akano, shooting away from Aziz's mouth just as a large beam of energy shot from it. The beam continued burning through the air, until it struck a mountain range far outside of Kuo, detonating so brightly that it could have been seen from space. Eyes, hold on, Akano-sama. Issei clenched his teeth as he tried to control his own power. Flying was harder than he thought. It took everything he had just to keep from shooting into the stratosphere. "I'll get you to Asia, and then she can heal you." Akano didn't say anything, and Issei hurried down to the ground. The earth cratered around him, but he ignored that and shot into a run that quickly took him to Asia. Behind him, Azzy roared in fury. "Damn you, Diedrich, get back here." Not so fast. Xenovia and a newly healed Kiba rushed the mountain of scaly muscle. They wove through Aziz's legs, attacking the dragon's heels. Unfortunately, Aziz's scales were too strong for their swords to cut through. Their blades bounced off when they swung. Azzy laughed at their futile attempts and tried to stomp the two into the ground. However, both of them had learned their lessons, and Kiba and Xenovia darted around his attacks, presenting a hard target to hit. Issei found Asia by the remains of the old school building. She was hiding behind a crumbled down wall. "Asia, I need you to heal Akano-sama." Asia gasped in horror when she saw the condition Akano was in. The raven-haired beauty's skin was black, charred. Cracks secreting blood marred her flesh. Some areas of her skin had been melted, revealing the fleshy pink muscle underneath. This is horrible. Hold on, Akano-san. I'll heal you right away." Asia's hands glowed green as she used her sacred gear, Twilight Healing, to fix Akano. Flesh mended together like threads in a tapestry. Charred skin flaked off, and healthy pink skin took its place. Akino's body slowly healed. Issei could have cried. He probably would have, too, if doing so wouldn't have lost him some points as a man. Eyes, Asia-chan. Are you feeling okay? Asia asked as Akino tried to get up. She couldn't, though, because Issei pushed her back down. Don't move yet. Your body might have healed, but you took some major damage out there. But the others, they'll be fine. Just then, loud roaring followed by numerous crashes emerged behind them. I think, Issei added. You think? Well, Issei rubbed the back of his head. It felt weird since his helmet was in the way. Kiba and Xenovia are pretty strong, they should be fine. Akino's sweat dropped. So did Asia, for that matter. Issei squirmed a bit as they stared at him, then he noticed something that he hadn't before. Akino, Sama, your wings. Akino's eyes widened as she looked behind herself and saw her wings. They jutted from her back, one of them leathery and bat-like. A devil's wing. However, the other was different. Feathers like a raven's covered it. This was not the wing of a devil, but a fallen angel's wing. It looks like I can no longer hide the truth. Akino looked at the ground. I'm not fully devil. Unlike you and Asia, who are humans reincarnated as devils, I was half fallen angel when Rias reincarnated me. This disgusting wing represents a tainted side of myself. It's ugly, isn't it? What are you talking about? Issei reached out and touched the wing that Akino tried hiding from him. He couldn't feel it because his glove was in the way, but he imagined it must have felt really soft. I think Akino-sama's wings are the prettiest. What? Akino stared at him like he said something incredibly stupid. Anyway, I should help Kiba and Xenovia fight that giant dragon off. Issei stood up. Asia, please keep Akino from trying to go anywhere. She's in no condition to fight. Alright. Issei grinned from behind his mask as he turned away and stalked out from behind the building. He could see Azzy several dozen meters away. Darting beneath the dragon's legs were two figures that could only be Kiba and Xenovia. Several other figures had also joined the fight. Devils and angels and fallen angels. All of them flitting about and taking shots at Azzy, not that it did much good. The dragon laughed at their efforts. Even when one fallen angel, who Issei recognized as the man that kept showing up at his house, fired off a blast of bright white lightning, Azzy merely laughed as if he was being tickled. Hey, Diedrich, how long do I have before my balance breaker runs out of juice? I'd say you have maybe 15 minutes at most. This is your first time activating balance breaker, so you don't have much of a handle on it yet. Plus, you still don't have a lot of power, which means you're going to exhaust yourself sooner. Got it. Thanks. Anytime. I get it, Naruto-sensei. I finally understand. Issei pounded his right fist into his left palm. Power surged through him, enhancing him to far beyond anything he'd ever felt before. This power, this strength, he would use it to protect the people he cared about and the school they went to. That's what it was for, after all. I understand what you meant back then, bending his knees. Issei launched himself into an all-out sprint that took him to Azzy more quickly than he'd have thought possible. One of the dragon's three heads noticed him, and it fired off several fireballs. Each and every one of them was batted aside. Issei them leapt into the air and kicked the underside of the head. He placed so much power into the attack that Azzy's left head snapped upwards with a loud crack. I've finally found my reason to fight, Devil Ninja. Siegfried knew he was in trouble. As a swordsman, being able to analyze his opponent's moves and find openings to exploit was a necessity. Even if he wasn't 100% emotionally stable, he still had the training that he'd undergone with the Catholic Church. He'd been one of their best exorcists, and his ability to analyze his situation hadn't changed. His sword moved in blurred lines, slicing the red power of destruction into segments that flew off and exploded in the distance. Kaneko came at him from behind, and Siegfried winced when he blocked one of her strikes with his sword. He should have cut through her hand, but they were coated with Senjutsu chakra, which protected her fist from his demonic sword. Instead of her hand getting sliced to ribbons, he was sent flying backwards. Appearing above him was a woman on fire. Revel, her wings of flame burning behind her, a large ball of fire pulsing between her hands. Teeth gritted in effort, the young Phoenix heiress launched the compressed ball of flame at Siegfried, who barely managed to avoid being killed by spinning around and slicing the fireball in half. This act left him vulnerable, however, and Irina had no issue taking advantage of his distracted state. Siegfried barely avoided having his head sliced off when she swung at him. Excalibur mimic wishing by like a flash of lightning. Blood leaked down his throat from her near miss. He blocked her next attack with Balmung, but Excalibur mimic shifted from a sword into a whip, which gouged a chunk out of his cheek. It would have taken his left eye out, but he turned his head at the last second to avoid that fate. Irina. Right. Irina leapt out of the way, allowing Rias to launch 2 orbs of reddish-black energy at Siegfried. There was something different about these spheres from her last attack, and he soon discovered what when, upon trying to slice one in half, it split into 4 smaller orbs that surrounded him and attacked from all sides. Twice critical. His arm glowed, a bright light pulsating like the breaking of a star. Silver scales erupted from his skin, covering his entire arm. Spikes like the mane of a dragon formed along it, and the tips of his fingers ended in wicked-looking claws. "To think you'd force me to use my sacred gear," Siegfried said. "Then again, I am outnumbered." "Then why don't you just give up?" Rias demanded. "I can't do that." Siegfried grinned. "If I gave up, then my dream of finding swordsmen capable of defeating me will be gone. I can't stop until my dream has been fulfilled. If that's how you're going to play it, then fine. Revel, Kaneko." "Yes, Rias-sama, on it, bucko." Revel sent a blast of fire at Siegfried while Rias and Kaneko fired off their own respective attacks. Dark red matter. Brilliant flames. Spheres of compressed senjutsu chakra. All 3 attacks hurtled towards Siegfried, who appeared unnaturally calm. The attacks hit their mark. Siegfried was engulfed in flames and destructive matter. A large explosion tore through the space, pushing everyone away. When the area cleared, there was no sign of their enemy. "Did we get him?" asked Revel. "It looks like it," Rias said. "I can't sense his presence anywhere." "What should we do now?" Irina asked. "Naruto," Kaneko answered. "Kaneko is right. We need to find Naruto and help him." A loud explosion let them know where their companion was, and the 4 of them raced off to find him. Devil Ninja, Naruto dodged Jean's thrust, moving to the left and ducking. Her blade shot past him. He reached out, grabbed her forearm, and pulled her into his knee. His opponent barely had time to gasp before she was launched backwards, soaring through the blackness that was the gap between dimensions. A spear came at him from behind. Naruto twisted around the spear, created one shadow clone, then he and his clone flanked Cao Cao, launching simultaneous wind attacks. Both attacks were sliced apart with contemptuous ease. Cao Cao spun the spear around his body, weaving a complicated pattern to confuse Naruto before attacking with a powerful slicing motion. Except Naruto wasn't there. What? The real Naruto was behind Cao Cao, and he slammed his feet into the other man's back, launching him clear across the space they were fighting in. Unlike Jean, who flew far and was only now coming back, Cao Cao stopped himself much more easily. At that moment, a roar from behind alerted Naruto to another foe. He spun around, blocking the large fist that tried to bash his face in. An explosion of power threatened to knock him back, but he held fast, applying chakra to his hand, then pulling. Heracles coughed up blood as he slammed into Naruto's knee. Letting go of the hand, Naruto performed a flawless spin kick that sent Heracles flying off into the darkness again. Cao Cao and Jean chose that moment to attack. Naruto wove between simultaneous strikes, constantly moving and presenting an impossible-to-strike foe. A sword came in from his left, a spear from his right. Naruto leapt into the air and twisted around, allowing both weapons to pass by underneath him. He then did a semi-split and kicked both Jean and Cao Cao in the face. "You really are an annoying enemy," Cao Cao mumbled, blood leaking down his nose. Naruto said nothing. "Not gonna talk? You've been so talkative until now." "I have nothing to say to you." "Good," Jean quipped from behind him. "We have nothing to say to a pervert like you, either." The tip of a blade protruded from Naruto's chest as Jean stabbed him from behind, or so Jean thought. When the Naruto in front of her disappeared, she only had a second to contemplate what happened before a foot slammed into stomach. Ing! Jean managed to keep from going far, but that only meant Naruto had less space to travel in order to reach her. Her eyes widening, Jean moved out of the way when Naruto launched a swift right. She thought she dodged it, but then she cried out when something still struck her in the cheek, causing her to fall backwards. Before Naruto could capitalize on his opponent's state, Cao Cao began a coordinated assault that left him little room to attack. The man's weapon spun around in a dizzying blur, forcing him to backpedal. Heracles came in from behind and tried to attack, but Naruto maneuvered around the fist and slammed a Rasengan into his chest. As the muscle-bound brute flew off again, Cao Cao tried to cut Naruto in half. A vertical slash came in from the right, but was avoided when Naruto leaned back. At the same time, his left foot came up, his upper half acting as a fulcrum, and smacked the staff part of the spear. While Cao Cao was knocked off balance, Naruto came back up and tried to shove a Rasengan in his face. However, he was forced to retreat when Jin attacked his flank. Lowering his center of gravity, Naruto dodged Jin's follow-up swing, then kicked her legs out from underneath her. He would have done more, but Cao Cao chose that moment to attack. A series of thrusts were evaded when Naruto used his hands and elbows to knock the spear attacks aside. Killing intent from behind told him that Jin had added herself to the mix again. He spun around, blocking several strikes with a kunai he'd pulled from his pouch. Cao Cao and Jin double-teamed him, but Naruto always made sure to stay one step ahead of them. He ducked underneath Jin's swing, then thrust an open palm into her gut. As she went flying, Naruto rabbit punched Cao Cao in the forearm when Hero faction leader tried to stab him with his spear. Naruto expected him to drop the spear of Longinus, but all he did was retract his hand. Blade blacksmith. Several dozen swords appeared around Naruto, glowing with holy power. They oriented themselves towards him, then fired off like rockets said to skewer him. A magic circle appeared underneath Naruto, who went through a series of hand seals. A large tornado surrounded him, bursting from the circle and increasing in intensity when he fed the devil spell his chakra. The powerful swirling winds blocked the holy swords, which flew off in all directions. "You're a lot stronger than I expected," Cao Cao admitted as Heracles lumbered up to them, growling as he massaged the spiral mark on his chest. "I think I am beginning to see why Ophis has been so fixated on you. It is clear to me now that everything you do, that foolish personality, that friendly facade, it's all a mask that you use to hide your strength. You put people at ease with a cheerful smile, so they never suspect how strong you truly are. How like a devil. If that's what you think, then go ahead and think that way. I don't really care." Naruto cracked his knuckles. "And if you think you can stall for time so your partner can attack me from behind, then you're sorely mistaken." At that exact moment, a blade sliced through Naruto, causing him to disperse into smoke, revealing that he'd been nothing but a clone. The real Naruto appeared in the air. He descended toward Jin, who prepared to block, when another Naruto appeared on her left and hit her with a powerful Rasengan. Jin screamed as she was blasted away. Heracles howled when he saw this and made to attack, but another Naruto suddenly appeared on top of him, driving him down with a massive Rasengan that exploded like a star gone nova. Cao Cao swore and tried to move in, but 6 more Narutos appeared out of thin air and attacked him. The first 2 were destroyed when they tried flanking him. He stabbed the one on his left, then slammed the pole end into the other's face. Spinning around, his spear cleaved through 2 more clones that tried to sneak up behind him. When they went up in smoke, Cao Cao turned around and cut the 5th one from the top of his head to his crotch. Chains sprouted from the 6th Naruto, half a dozen of them. They attempted to wrap around Cao Cao, who spun his Longinus around his body, deflecting them with expert precision. The chains went wide, then he stepped in and stabbed that Naruto through the chest, expecting him to burst into dust. He didn't. What? Cao Cao only had enough time to contemplate what this mean when Naruto, the real Naruto, pulled the spear further into himself and headbutted Cao Cao. The man stumbled back, the spear pulling free from Naruto's body with a wet licked. Before Cao Cao had time to recover, Naruto slammed a Rasengan into his chest, sending the man back. "Had enough?" asked Naruto as his opponent struggled to his feet. "Why, you're a monster," Cao Cao mumbled, standing up with great difficulty. "There's no way, you should be dead. This spear should have killed you, you should be dead." "Don't be stupid. A spear like that isn't going to kill me." Naruto flexed his hands. "The Longinus is a spear that can kill gods, however, a spear like that wouldn't do anything against someone with more power than the average god. Didn't you say it yourself? There is a reason that Ophis has been searching for me. It's because the power inside of me exceeds even hers. Something like your spear isn't going to put me down." Naruto stalked forward, blood dripping from the massive hole in his chest. Yet even as he moved, the wound recovered. Organs were restored. Muscle fibers wound around the organs. Bones mended. Flesh covered the rest, crawling over the wound until it wasn't a wound, just a patch of healthy pink skin. Naruto! A shout came from a distance. Naruto turned to see Rias and the others flying toward him. They landed next to him. Naruto, Rias hesitated for a moment. Are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. Naruto didn't take his eyes off Cao, Jean, and Heracles, who joined the man, but he did turn his head a bit toward Rias. What about you? They didn't hurt you, did they? No, Rias shook her head. Cao Tan, yes, it looks like we've overstayed our welcome. Cao admitted. It'll be difficult to take on so many devils all at once. Let's withdraw for now. Are you serious? We can't withdraw, Heracles rumbled. When Cao glared at him, he grumbled but relented. TCH, fine. You think I'd let you do that? Naruto shouted, thrusting out his fist. Rasengan. A giant beam of spiraling blue energy shot from Naruto's hand. It struck nothing but air as Cao, Jean, and Heracles vanished through the use of a teleportation circle. Damn it. Naruto scowled. I can't believe they got away from me. Still, he turned to Rias. His mouth quivered a bit. He sniffled once, the only sign of what he was feeling. Then he smiled. I'm really glad you're alright, and, I'm sorry, for not being there when you needed me. We can discuss that later. Rias grabbed Naruto's hand. Kaneko, Revel, and Irina have informed me of what's happening at the school. Right now, we need to get back to our friends and help them. Naruto shifted his grip, lacing his fingers through Rias's. Right. Then let's go. Devil Ninja, Kiba and Xenovia were in trouble. They'd been fighting Azzy for a long time now, and while neither was ready to admit defeat, they were getting tired. High above, Barakiel fired off blast after blast of holy lightning. However, none of it did any damage. It only served to annoy Azzy, who decided to get rid of him. Seconds later, Barakiel was surrounded by several hundred magical circles, which all detonated at the same time, scorching the fallen's body and making him plummet to the ground, where he landed with a sickening thud. Azzy's clawed hand crashed into the ground. The sheer force was enough to cause the entire school campus to shake. Xenovia stumbled, falling to a knee. She would have been crushed by a massive clawed hand, but Kiba used his speed to keep her from being turned into a pancake. You two truly are a pair of annoying worms, Azzy growled. We do try, Kiba quipped. Indeed you do, but I'm afraid it's all going to be for naught. What? Several magic circles appeared on the ground all around them. Azzy grinned. Did you really think I was just stomping around everywhere to try and squash you with my claws? Foolish devil. Pay for your insolence with your life. Azzy flew into the air just as a monstrous explosion erupted on the ground, engulfing Kiba and Xenovia. Pillars of flame rose into the sky like a dying phoenix. Plumes of dust and smoke choked the sky, and when it cleared, there, lying on the ground, their flesh charred almost beyond recognition, was Xenovia and Kiba. Foolish children. You should have never gone against me in my quest to. Shut up. Clad in red armor that gleamed in the sun, Issei Hyodo crashed into one of Azzy's heads like a falling meteorite. The sound of a neck breaking could be heard even over the din of combat and explosions. While the head that Issei broke whimpered, the other two laughed, undaunted by what just happened, and sent a mass of fireballs at Issei, who wove between the flames and launched a dragon shot at the nearest head. The explosion was impressive, and while it didn't destroy the head, it did cause the scales to become superheated and melt. Ha ha ha. Is that all you have, Diedrich? More? Give me more. My name isn't Diedrich. It's Issei Hyodo. Remember it, asshat. Issei Hyodo. Very well. I'll remember the name of Diedrich's prison as I rip your body limb from limb. Several magic circles surrounded Issei, who had but a moment to realize what that meant. Oh, shit. He put on a burst of speed, flying up, into the air as high as he could. Fire burst from the circles, and lightning. They chased after Issei, who'd already climbed high into the atmosphere, following even when he performed near-suicidal aerial maneuvers. No matter where he went, however, the spells followed, and Issei was soon surrounded. And then the spells converged. Even protected by the balance breaker Welsh dragon armor, Issei's body was battered as explosion after explosion rocked his frame. Chunks of armor shattered and his body was exposed to the heat. It burned him, searing his skin, but he gritted his teeth and struggled through the pain. Seconds later, he burst from the mass of explosions and headed straight for Azzy. Ascalon. It jutted from Issei's gauntlet, a massive sword. Gilded and glistening silver. Its majestic appearances suggested that it had once been used by kings. However, this was no king's sword, but a sword of the heavens. Ascalon, the holy dragon-slaying sword. I'm gonna ram this sword down your throat. Azzy tried to destroy Issei with more magic, but he ignored the burst flames and explosions that attempted to consume him. He soared straight for the nearest head and impaled Ascalon into its reptilian eyes. Issei had expected Azzy to cry out in pain. However, when the dragon merely laughed, victory turned into confusion and confusion into horror. Blood seeped from the eye, which had burst like an overripe fruit, yet Azzy was just laughing it off like it was nothing. A loud crunch rang in his ears. Pain filled him seconds later. Gasping, he looked down to see that one of the heads had clamped down on his ankle. Oh, that is not good. The head shook Issei back and forth like a dog munching on a chewed toy. Issei could feel the muscles in his leg tearing. It was like someone had stabbed him with several large knives, and then decided to slowly pull those knives across his body, cutting through muscle and skin alike. In desperation, Issei fired a dragon shot point blank at Azzy, which forced the monster's head to let go. Issei would have fallen straight to the ground, but Akeno, fully healed, flew up and caught him, soaring away before one of the heads could make him into a meal. Akeno-sama. Hold on tight, eyes. Don't worry about me, this is nothing. You're very stubborn. Sensei taught me to never give up when the people I love are in danger. That's an admirable sentiment, but let's not discuss this here, we've got trouble. What kind of, oh, so not good? A dragon head appeared within their field of vision, its mouth open. Fire coalesced inside of its esophagus, a bright ball of flame that pulsed like a star about to go nova. Issei grunted and fired off another dragon shot, which exploded against the fireball building inside of the mouth. The results were quite spectacular. Blood, bone fragments and fleshy organic remains, along with melted scales, erupted in a geyser of fire and gore. Azzy's two remaining heads roared, yet even in the throes of pain, the dragon continued to laugh, as if he took pleasure from his own suffering. Akeno descended to the ground, where Asia was already waiting to heal Issei. Kiba and Xenovia were already there, completely healed, though they looked like they'd experienced some horrible nightmares come tomorrow. What are we gonna do about that dragon? Asked Kiba. It's too powerful for us. Even your new balance breaker hasn't been enough to put it down. Yeah, and Diedrich says I've only got 5 minutes left. 5 minutes should be plenty of time, a voice said. Just then, a large tear opened in the space before them. Darkness appeared within the opening, along with 5 familiar figures. Sorry we're a little late to the party, Naruto said as he stepped in front of the group. Rias won his left while Kaneko and Ravel hung onto his right side. Irina stood in the back. Damn bastard, Issei grumbled, standing up after Asia healed him and testing his leg. Always showing up at the last damn minute. Naruto would have made a joke about how heroes were supposed to show up at the last minute, but after the Kokebeel incident, he didn't believe he had that right. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I would have come sooner, but we ran into more Chaos Brigade members. Well, you're here now, so I guess it's okay. Just so you know, if you were any later, I would have kicked your ass. Oh, so, the apprentice really thinks he's good enough to defeat the master, does he? Ha! You got that right. Just try me, buddy. Pick a fight with me and your ass will be grass. Idiots, Kaneko muttered. You think so? I think it's kinda sweet how well they get along, Ravel said before noticing the look Kaneko said her. What? Shut up, chicken flambe. Don't call me that. As much as I'd love to listen to all of you joke around, we still have to deal with that dragon. Rias crossed her arms. Do you have a plan, bucko? Asked Akeno. I do, actually, Rias said, but it's going to be tough, and my plan is full of holes. It's also reckless. I'm down for anything reckless, Naruto declared. I figured you would be. By the way, he looked around. Where is Ophis? Devil Ninja. Ophis sat on the couch in Naruto's living room, eating a bag of chips, watching anime. She was currently watching the anime Shinmai Mao no Testament, in which a boy ended up living with a large-breasted redhead. What is it about big boobs and red hair? Ophis wondered. Is that what boys like? She'd never really cared about men before. All she wanted was her solitude back. However, spending time around Naruto had made her a little curious about other people. And since Naruto was a boy, that naturally made her curious about boys. Naruto is dating that girl with large breasts and red hair. It must have had something to do with breasts and red hair. There was just too much of a coincidence. I wonder, if I had large boobs and red hair, would he go on a date with me? Ophis continued to watch as some guy groped a teenage redhead's prominent bust, wondering. The seed had been planted. Devil Ninja, Naruto had to lament his powers sometimes. Thanks to Kurama, he had immense amounts of power at his disposal. Certainly more than enough to defeat some overgrown lizard. Most unfortunately, unless he wanted to destroy this entire city along with said lizard, he couldn't use that much power. This wasn't like Kokebeel, who was so much weaker than him it was almost laughable. This monster had power, more than enough to make defeating him difficult, even if he used Kurama's power. I guess we're doing it the old-fashioned way. Hey, I say that like I've actually fought against a dragon before. Considering some of the things you've gone up against, I'm almost surprised you haven't fought a dragon yet. Still, be careful. In terms of raw power, this one is more powerful than you. And since the only attacks I have that would take care of this pest would also wipe out everyone else. Yeah, this battle's gonna be tough. Almost as if his words were a silent proclamation. The dragon they were to fight lumbered into view. The earth rumbled with each lumbering step the dragon took. Naruto could actually feel his teeth rattling as it moved. Right, time to play my part. Good luck, brat. Gee. Thanks, Furball. Stepping out in front of the dragon, Naruto let his power leak, allowing the dragon to easily sense him. As he stopped, its two remaining heads craning to look down at him. Naruto noticed that one of its heads was missing, and the neck it had been attached to dangled limply. He wondered who'd done that. Hi. Naruto smiled with good cheer. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I shall be handing your ass to you on a silver platter today. Foolish devil. Azzy roared. I'm going to crush you. Azzy brought his clawed front foot up, then down on top of Naruto. Except Naruto wasn't there. The Naruto underneath him popped like a balloon, smoke bursting from where he'd been. The real Naruto was above Azzy, a gigantic swirling orb of energy in his hands. Udoma Rasengan. Blue energy exploded against the top of Azzy's skull. The force pushed the head down. The dragon roared, enraged, and several bolts of lightning lanced out from magic circles to strike Naruto, who wove between the hailstorm of flashing bolts. Boost. Down below, Ria stood with Revel and Kaneko. A magic circle appeared in front of her, crackling with power. Beside her, fire flared from Revel's magic circle, while Kaneko's hands were coated with Senjutsu chakra. All three of them launched their attacks simultaneously, combining them to form a massive beam of destruction that slammed into the dragon's front leg. Roaring like a wounded beast, Azzy's leg gave in and the dragon fell to the ground. Boost. Kiba, Xenovia, and Irina darted in after Azzy fell. With Kiba in the lead, the trio of sword users went in for the dragon's weak spot, the damaged leg. The scales that had protected it from their swords had melted away, exposing the soft flesh underneath. Wielding Ascalon, Kiba hacked into the wounded leg, severing through muscle like it was tissue paper. Further damage was done when Xenovia used Durandal to annihilate the leg with ease. Irina's Excalibur mimic transformed into a whip, wrapped around the exposed tendons in the leg, and tore them out. Boost. Azzy's agonized and furious growls echoed in their ears. It stood up, its leg wobbly, and tried to strike at the group of pesky devils and holy sword wielders. But several Naruto clones appeared and used their own bodies to protect their comrades. Shadow clones. The real Naruto continued to keep the heads busy. Dozens of clones ran all over the place, laying waste to the dragon's armored scales with Rasengans and wind jutsu. While the armor was too hard for a simple Rasengan to pierce, the accumulated damage of numerous attacks hitting the same spot caused cracks to appear. The cracks spread quickly, like running water flowing over a rock. Boost. Kurama. On it. Naruto felt the energy flowing into him. Senjutsu chakra. While he couldn't see it, he knew that his eyes had changed color. He could feel his body strengthening as it was enhanced by the Senjutsu chakra mixing with his chakra. One of the dragon heads opened its mouth wide, as if to swallow Naruto whole. Grinning, Naruto boosted his flight, ascending into the air, then spinning like a top as he slammed his heel onto the top of the dragon's muzzle. Azi's mouth snapped shut, and Naruto used his attack as a springboard to launch himself at the other head, which was currently contending itself with several shadow clones. Boost! It never saw him coming. Naruto crashed head first into Azi's second head, which caused the dragon's neck to snap to the side like it had whiplash. Undeterred by the pain from headbutting something with scales that were harder than diamonds, Naruto launched several chains from his hands, which wrapped around the dragon's mouth, snapping Azi's muzzle shut. He then swung on the chains like Tarzan, before flipping onto the head. Boost! Azi tried to shake him off, but Naruto not only had a good grip on the chains, he was also enhanced by Sage Mode and had applied chakra to the bottom of his feet. Snarling, Azi tried blasting him into oblivion. Several circles appeared around Naruto and sent blast after blast of fire at him. Naruto yanked on his chains, however, causing Azi's head to jerk upwards, right into the path of his own attacks, which dispersed before they could actually hit. Boost! TCH, I knew it wouldn't have been so easy. Infuriating pests. One of Azi's heads snarled before snapping closed around one of the Naruto clones, which popped in its mouth. The head growled. Boost! Down below, Kaneko, Rias and Revel continued to combine their attacks and damage its legs. Then Kiba, Irina and Xenovia would further wreak havoc on the damaged parts. Two of Azi's 4 legs had been reduced to meaty pulps of flaking scales and dangling muscle. Azi was no longer able to support himself, thus he'd been forced onto his belly. This meant that Rias and the others switched their target from its legs to its heads. Boost! A combined magic attack from Rias, Revel and Kaneko reduced one of Azi's heads to a single eye, the other having turned into drooping mush and melted scales. Kiba, Xenovia and Irina launched simultaneous attacks on the other head, gouging its eyes out. As blood spurted from bursting eyeballs, Azi struggled and growled to no avail. Pain had overridden his ability to respond to threats. Boost! Eyes, Akeno, now, floating above the rest, out of sight, Issei and Akeno prepared to deliver the finishing blow. Over Booster. Second liberation. Akeno hurtled her lightning at Issei, who took it in and enhanced it with his ability. Bright red light crackled with pale yellow bolts that surged around Issei like a tornado. Eat this, douche nozzle. Everyone leapt away as an enormous beam of lightning rained from the sky. Azi's agonized bellowing was drowned out by the crackling of thunder. The earth shook like a stampede of giants were running across the land. Fissures spread across the ground, large enough that people could easily fall in and deep enough that you couldn't see the bottom. Whatever battles had been going on ceased as a massive pillar of red energy mixed with surging arcs of lightning rose into the sky, piercing the heavens. Whoa, Naruto mumbled as he landed near Rias, helping feed energy into the barrier she'd put up to protect everyone. I hadn't realized eyes had gotten so strong. Think this will be enough to take down that dragon? I don't know. Rias bit her lip. Azi Dahaka is a very powerful evil dragon. He's known by many as the Diabolism Thousand Dragon. While he's not as strong as the 2 heavenly dragons, Diedrich and Albion, he is more than capable of matching any one of the Dragon Kings. Well, I guess we'll find out soon enough. The pillar dissipated, several arcs of electrical discharge remaining. The entire area smelled of burnt ozone, a sharp, odorous scent that invaded Naruto's nostrils, along with the smell of charred flesh. Lying prone on the ground, Azi Dahaka looked more like roasted meat than a dragon. The dragon's scale were mostly gone, and what little remained was molten slag that dripped from its charred body. Blackened flesh oozed with blood and pus. The cracked skin left openings, allowing those around it an unfettered glimpse of pulsing organs that grew slower with each second. Its heads were a mess. Still attached to their necks, they no longer resembled heads at all. There were no eyes, no mouth, and the muzzle was gone. They looked like a fused mass of melted plastic. I think we did it, Naruto said in wonder. Did you guys see that? Issei asked, floating back to the ground with Akeno. A grin plastered all over his face. We'd totally fried that jerk's lizard ass. Fufu, indeed. Akeno licked her lips. The pain we put Azidahaka through before exterminating him was most exquisite. I think I came a few times while we were bombarding him with lightning. I so did not need to hear that, Rias mumbled. At least the dragon is dead, Irina added brightly. He's been turned into KFC, like Yakitori here, Kaneko said, seemingly in agreement. Stop calling me Yakitori, a red-faced Revel shouted. Everyone had relaxed now that the battle was over. Issei was grinning like a loon as he spoke with Asia and Akeno, making wild gesticulations as he told them about how he kicked dragon ass, even though they'd been present for the battle. Naruto glanced at Rias as the others spoke. She saw him looking at her, grabbed his hand, and sent him a beautiful smile that made him smile back. He knew they would still need to speak after this, but Naruto was confident that they could resolve their issues now. Do you really think you've beaten me? The festivities came to a screeching halt as a voice, low and growling, like the rumbling of a bass, pierced their good mood. These wounds are nothing for one of my power. Everyone turned to the corpse, only it wasn't quite a corpse. Though I do thank you for the pleasure of giving me such exquisite pain. It's been ages since I felt so alive. The body of Azidahaka twitched. Then it spasmed. Naruto thought he saw black snakes of some kind wiggling inside of its body, but he couldn't be sure. The body sprang to life, and its wounds healed over. Torn pinions grew back, 6 black wings spreading to their full span. The stump where there had once been a head reformed, bones regrowing, muscles reknitting, and scales covering a reptilian head. The other 2 heads quickly regenerated as well. It stood up, then, and its 3 heads craned down to give the group of devils and exorcists a grin filled with saw-like fangs. Chapter 20. When the going gets tough, Rizavam stood on a large cliff overlooking a vast forest. He didn't particularly like the peaceful air about this place, but this was where he'd agreed to meet with the others. Standing beside him were 2 of his cohorts, Kateria and Euclid, a young-looking man with braided silver hair and a calm demeanor. Neither appeared all that worried, though Kateria seemed impatient. Several other figures stood with him. Their forms were cloaked in darkness, hoods covering their faces. He didn't know any of their names, but he didn't really need to know. They were humans, members of the magician faction of their happy little family. The only one he even knew personally was the one in charge, who stood at the forefront of the 10 magicians. It has been a long time since the battle began, Euclid stated calmly. Are you sure they haven't been killed? Oh, yes, I'm sure. Rizavam smiled. How is Shalba doing? He's bedridden and swearing, Kateria informed him. He's also been howling in pain. Well, he is the one who decided to go into battle without wearing our new armor, Rizavam said. That's what happens when you let your ego get the best of you. At that moment, someone appeared within a teleportation circle. He knelt on the ground, holding the stump where his left arm should have been. Blood leaked from his mouth, and he was breathing quite heavily. His face had broken out into a sweat. You see that? Rizavam gestured to the man. Siegfried has arrived. Though you're a little injured than I expected you to be. Did your fight against Naruto Uzumaki not go as planned? I didn't fight Naruto, Siegfried rasped. Oh? Do tell? Several of the mages strode forward carrying boxes, which they set down next to Siegfried, who looked like he was going to pass out. They opened the boxes and pulled out a number of syringes, injecting them into Siegfried, who grunted. Then they waved their staffs at him, encasing the silver-haired man in a sphere of green energy. I fought against the people that Naruto brought with him, Siegfried explained. A holy sword user, a member of the Phoenix clan, a Nekusho, and Rias Gremory. So I see. Yes, your wounds make a lot of sense. Unlike the soft-hearted Naruto, those girls don't play around. I suppose it is a very good thing you were wearing that new experimental armor of ours. At that moment, what almost appeared to be dead skin flaked off Siegfried's forehead. It wasn't skin, though, not human skin at least. It was too scaly to be that. Although it appears that your armor was overloaded. Siegfried grunted in reply, causing Rizavam to smile. Don't worry about your arm. These magicians are really good at making those. We can have a new one grafted on you in no time. Siegfried said nothing. While the magicians worked on stopping the bleeding and implanting a fake arm until they could remake his old one, 3 more teleportation circles appeared, along with 3 more figures. Gra! Heracles' howls pierced the air. The man lay on his back, his flesh peeling off, the muscles in his chest deteriorating. His ribcage was visible, white bone covered in crimson ichor. It looked like someone had taken a drill to his chest. "Could somebody please silence this man?" Kateria scowled. "His obnoxious wailing is grating on my nerves." A mage waved his staff and Heracles became muted. "That's better." Kateria sniffed derisively at Heracles who, even silenced, continued to scream. "Honestly, what a pathetic man." "What did I tell you?" Rizavam said. "I told you they would come back alive, didn't I? So how was it battling against Naruto? I mean, I was right, wasn't I? Tell me I was right." Cao Cao gritted his teeth. He held a hand to his chest where Naruto's Rasengan had hit him. Sitting on it was a horrendous wound. Blood oozed from the spiral markings engraved on his chest. The flesh there had literally been shredded. Fleshy muscles were visible beneath the torn skin. He was better off than Heracles, but not by much. "You were right," Cao Cao said, the words like admitting that Rizavam was right was slowly killing him. "Naruto could have killed us, but he didn't." Rizavam excitedly clapped his hands together. "I knew it. He's just like Sirsex. Too soft for his own good. He won't kill someone if he doesn't have to. He's weak, and that very weakness will be his undoing." "You call this soft?" Jean gestured to her chest, where a bright red spiral mark marred her once perfect skin. "Yes," Rizavam said plainly. "The mere fact that you are alive after being hit by that technique is a miracle. I doubt you would know this, since you haven't bothered to study up on the current underworld events, but that technique is one of Naruto Uzumaki's signature moves. From what I have gathered, it is a technique that uses multiple rotations to grind away at an opponent's body. You can see the results from poor Heracles over here. Unlike you, he received the full brunt of the Rasengan's power. Were it not for the magician faction's dragon powder armor that you three are wearing, I guarantee that he, at least, would be dead." Jean looked at Heracles. He was no longer thrashing around, having been sedated. His prone body was being worked on by magicians. They waved their staffs over his wounds, green light emitting from them. Flesh and bones slowly mended in a sickening display, which caused Jean to wrinkle her nose in disgust. "Point taken. Still, I think this was an excellent first test," Rizavam declared, nodding several times in satisfaction. "This armor is still in the testing stage, so the fact that it can withstand even a weakened Rasengan is good news. Now we'll be able to improve on it before our next engagement, and since Naruto is too weak and soft-hearted to outright kill someone, it means we can keep attacking over and over again." Rizavam was definitely feeling pleased. Everything that he'd been told about Naruto was ringing true. His benefactor had really come through for him. The magicians finished healing Cao Cao and Jean, and Heracles was soon placed on a floating stretcher. Rizavam decided that it was time for them to leave this dreary place. There were things that needed to be done, like getting the magician faction to finish working on his latest project. "All right, everyone," he said, his tone amiable, if slightly mocking. "It's time for us to head off. There's much to do, so let's go." Whistling a chipper tune, Rizavam created a portal around them, transporting the group back to their base. Today, he decided, had been a good day, Devil Ninja. Azazel frowned as the feeling of immense power cascaded over him and everyone else like an avalanche. There was no mistaking that indescribably disgusting power. Only a dragon could have so much power, and only a dragon would flaunt it so readily. Deep laughter like the rumbling of the earth echoed across a vast distance. He could see the dragon dozens of meters away. What had once been a decimated corpse now looked brand new and even more powerful than ever before. Lord Azazel, Shimshazai, his second in command, swooped down and landed by his side. Should we aid the devils in disposing of this dragon? Azazel pondered doing just that. It would be a good way to build trust between their races. On the other hand, too many people fighting the same enemy could easily become a disaster, especially when those people haven't worked together before. It would be difficult for any but our strongest fighters to stand a chance against that thing, Azazel said at last. Barakiel should already be heading over there anyway. Besides, I need most of you here with me. There's still pockets of resistance from the Chaos Brigade. We need to dispose of them before they cause any more problems. I understand, Governor General. If you want, I could lend a hand. Azazel's eyes brightened as another figure descended for the ground. Clad in white armor, he stood, wings burning a bright blue spreading from his back, emitting powerful light. A helmet sat on his head, reptilian in nature and bearing a fierce demeanor. Light blue eyes shaped like diamonds glowed from within the faceplate. Behind him, a segmented tail writhed as if alive. "Valley," Azazel grinned at the boy. "You're pretty late to the party, what happened?" "I apologize for being so late. I was delayed." Azazel's eyes narrowed. "The Chaos Brigade?" Valley nodded. "I see. It seems those rascals are causing problems everywhere." "All right." Azazel grinned. "Since you're here, it means we can help those kids with that dragon. I want you to go over there and lend your support." "You've got it." Wings flared like luminescent suns as Valley shot into the air and took off, his destination the dragon, and the people who were fighting it. Azazel watched the young man go, his face etching into a frown as a short sense of foreboding overcame him. "Governor General?" Shamzahai asked. "It's nothing." Azazel turned from the sight. "Let's back up our men at the front." "Yes, Governor General." Devil Ninja, Naruto was the first to go on the attack. Everyone else hung back while he charged the dragon like a ballistic missile. Azidahaka laughed, as if amused by his antics, and tried crushing him with a paw. Naruto dodged, or rather, he thought he dodged. A powerful force slammed into him, shocking Naruto as he was sent rocketing backwards, tumbling across the ground like a ragdoll thrown by an angry child. "Naruto!" Rias shouted in concern. "I'm fine, stick to the plan." Naruto turned his roll into a skid, feet sliding along the ground, digging a trench through grass and mud alike. He bent his knees and, timing himself to a second before his body stopped skidding, launched himself into an all-out sprint. Two clones appeared alongside him as he barreled for the dragon, one on either side. He held out his hands, which already had two spinning orbs situated within his palms. The clones added their own chakra to the mix, expanding the amount used. The Rasengans went from being the size of his palm to the size of his head, then to the size of his entire body. Leaping into the air, Naruto soared high over the heads of Azidahaka and came crashing down. Suin Rasengan. The two orbs slammed into the dragon's head and then fizzled out. What? Naruto had just a moment to realize his predicament before the head tried to swallow him whole. Dragon shot. A massive beam of energy slammed into the head, knocking it off course. Naruto landed safely on the ground and sent Issei a thumbs up. "Nice save. You owe me for that." "Hey, saves me one time and he's already getting cocky." A magic circle appeared underneath his feet. Leaping to the side, Naruto avoided becoming a shish kebab without a stick. A giant pillar of fire leapt from the circle. The fire then changed, twisting, warping. It was no longer a pillar, but instead a massive dragon, its fiery yellow body contrasting starkly with its vicious blue eyes. Naruto snarled as the dragon flew at him. He channeled chakra to his hand, wincing as something similar to acid was pumped through his body, and then punched the dragon right in the face. The fire dragon exploded around him. Snatching his hand back as it was burned, Naruto leapt away as a clawed hand came crashing down. "Eyes!" Rias shouted. "Back Naruto up." "Right?" Issei grinned and slammed his fists together. "Time to fight." "I don't think so," a voice said, seconds before a speeding white bullet slammed into Issei like a freight train. "Eyes! Eyes-san! Eyes-kun!" The white bullet shot into the air, taking Issei with it, disappearing from sight. Before Rias or the others could even think of going off to rescue their friend, four more people appeared. The first, a beautiful woman with yellow eyes and messy raven hair. Next to her, two people who could have been siblings, their matching blonde hair and blue eyes giving them away. In front, standing with an easygoing yet confident posture, a man wearing Chinese armor and carrying a bow staff grinned at them. The raven-haired woman's eyes scanned the crowd before locking onto Kaneko. "Sharon-chan," she purred, "it's so nice to see you again. Did you miss me?" Kaneko stiffened with fear, but she still managed to glare at the woman. "Kuroka, Oni-sama. So, you do remember me." Kuroka looked positively delighted. "I've come to take you back with me." Rias was about to stand protectively in front of Kaneko, when the white-haired girl stepped forward. "Kaneko, I'm not going back with you," Kaneko declared. Kuroka grinned. "You say that like I'm giving you a choice." As if in response to her words, Kaneko's Neko ears twitched several times, and white senjutsu chakra engulfed her hands. If you want me to come with you, then you'll have to take me by force, Kaneko declared. And you'll have to get through me as well, Revel declared, moving to stand by Kaneko's side. Cacciatore. D, don't look at me like that. Revel blushed. There's no way I'd let this woman take you and stop calling me that. TCH, Kuroka's face became truly hideous. If that's how it's going to be, then I'll simply kill you both. Kuroka charged at the two girls. Rias, Xenovia, Irina, Kiba, and Akeno all made to defend them, but the other three people attacked before they could move, keeping them from reaching the pair. Oh, no you don't. Biku's golden staff extended to incredible lengths. Rias and the others were forced to dodge, especially when the ground shattered upon the staff striking it. Biku charged after Rias and Akeno, launching senjutsu projectiles to keep the pair occupied. Lefei created a barrier around Arthur and his three opponents, the other sword users, Kiba and Xenovia and Irina, while at the same time providing covering fire in the form of a multitude of spells. The lines had been drawn. The second half of the battle had begun. Devil Ninja, Naruto fell from the sky. Below him stood Azidahaka, whose massive reptilian form created a stark contrast with the ground. Several dozen magic circles appeared. A combination of lightning and fire leapt from those circles, all of them converging on Naruto's location. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Acid dripped in Naruto's veins as 102 clones were summoned from thin air. Half the chakra constructs grabbed the other half and threw them at the spell's human meat shielding at its finest. The dozens of spells exploded as they met the clones, which cleared a path for the original Naruto. A bell-like shriek filled the air. Naruto held a hand above his head, two clones adding their chakra and helping shape it. Wind swirled around the small sphere in the center like a cyclone. The sphere grew more and more massive, and with it, so too did the shuriken-shaped wind blades, from which the jutsu derived its name. Kurama, I could use some more senjutsu chakra. Can't, Kurama grunted. What do you mean you can't? I've got bigger things to worry about right now, brat. Like YURK. Like keeping your ass alive, that's what. Naruto gritted his teeth as he finally felt it, what he'd been ignoring all along. Pain. It was unlike anything he'd ever felt before. So intense he couldn't describe it, so powerful that no amount of metaphors would do it justice. It felt like his very existence was being ripped from this reality. He didn't know what was happening, but he couldn't let this pain stop him. Udoma Rasen Shuriken. Putting everything he had into this single attack. Naruto ignored the pain and threw the Rasen Shuriken, using minute chakra control to keep a line attached to the jutsu, so that he could control it even from a distance. It hurt. Using chakra like this hurt. Using chakra at all hurt, but he wasn't about to let something like that stop him. He shoved the feeling of fiery needles piercing his chest aside, and focused everything he had into this single attack. A magic circle appeared in above Azidahaka. The Rasen Shuriken slammed into it, then broke straight through it without pause. Another magic circle followed the first, then another, and another and another. With each magic circle that the Rasen Shuriken destroyed, the jutsu he'd launched became smaller and smaller, until it was barely the size of his fist. The miniature Rasen Shuriken struck the leftmost of Azidahaka's heads, shredding it to pieces. However, the head quickly regenerated. Struck by a pain so intense he could scarcely comprehend his surroundings, Naruto was unable to do anything as a tail struck him across the back. Earth was upturned as he struck the ground, creating a massive crater. He blinked several times and soon realized that his face was halfway buried in the earth. Rolling onto his back, Naruto looked up at the sky. Kurama, shut up. I can't concentrate if you keep talking to me. What do you? I said shut up. Do you want to die, Naruto? Naruto grimaced. Something was wrong. Something was horribly wrong. He didn't know what, but he could tell, his body could tell, his whole being could tell. Slowly clambering to his feet, Naruto was quickly forced to a knee as he vomited blood. He wiped it away, or he tried to. When more blood leaked from his mouth, he realized that it was pointless and stopped trying. Just then, a loud, rumbling laugh, like thunder striking the ground, echoed all around him. Naruto looked up. There, towering over him, looking down at him with a hungry leer, was Azidahaka. Fuck me sideways. Devil Ninja. Issei struggled against the white-clad figure, yet all he could do was grunt as the person clad in draconic armor slowly crushed him. Is this all the Red Dragon Emperor has? The figure asked. To think, someone as weak as you is supposed to be my rival. It's almost laughable. A growl emerged from Issei's throat. Rearing his head back, he slammed it into the armored warrior's head. OWCH. Issei yelped as pain speared through his noggin. Maybe slamming his head into someone wearing a helmet wasn't such a good idea. At least it got the other guy to let go. Extending his wings, Issei hovered several meters from the figure clad in white armor. Who the hell are you? Issei demanded. I'm sorry. I completely forgot about introductions. My name is Valley Lucifer, and I am the White Dragon Emperor. Shock jolted through Issei like a powerful electric current. He couldn't believe it. This man was related to that douche nozzle who interrupted the meeting, and he was the holder of the divine dividing. What the fuck? That's not cool, man. How the hell does that even work? I thought only humans could be sacred gear holders. You don't know anything, do you? Valley asked rhetorically. While devils cannot become sacred gear holders, anyone with human blood in them can. I'm a half-devil, born between a human woman and a devil. Oh. Issei scratched the back of his neck. Well, I guess that makes sense. Albion, a deep voice said from his gauntlet. Whoa, it talked. It's been a long time, Diedrich. When was the last time that you and I fought? Valley's gauntlet replied. It must have been several hundred years at least. The last time we had a host, yours died before we could fight. And as I recall, the one you had before that died before we could fight. It seems we have finally gotten a chance to renew our ages-long battle. Indeed. Look, not to interrupt your conversation or anything, but could you two, not talk while the two of us are about to fight? It's really distracting. Sorry, partner. I just wanted to say hi. It's cool. Now, Issei pounded his fists together. I have a score to settle with the giant lizard over there and some friends to protect. He pointed at Valley. You're in my way, so it looks like I'm gonna have to move you. You're welcome to try, Valley said, his visor's eyes glowing a bright blue. No more words were spoken as the two charged forward. Devil Ninja, Kaneko, her fist glowing with concentrated senjutsu chakra, bore down on Kuroka like a rampaging bull. The ground shattered when Kuroka vanished and she struck the earth instead. Large ruptures appeared as the area she stood on cratered, the earth splitting apart like a localized earthquake. Kuroka appeared several feet away from Kaneko. NYA. It seems you've learned how to use senjutsu, Sharon. Very impressive. However, Kuroka's lips twisted into a mocking smile. That's not going to be enough to defeat. Kuroka was engulfed in fire before she could complete her sentence. Floating several feet away, Ravel pointed her hand at the woman, bright white flames rushing from her palm. The flames formed a massive beam that completely consumed Kuroka in a fiery conflagration, or so Ravel thought. My, that wasn't very nice, NYA, a voice said behind her. Ravel's eyes widened as she spun around. Kuroka grinned as she sent several senjutsu spheres at the Phoenix Heiress. Yet moments before they could hit, Kaneko jumped in front of them. Using her cat-like reflexes and rook strength, she swatted aside each and every sphere, protecting Ravel from receiving any damage. Hey Kaneko, are you alright? Oh, of course I am. Who do you think you're talking to? I'm glad to hear that, because Kuroka Oni-sama is moving on to the attack. What? 16 Kurokas appeared, like mirages forming from a thick mist, and all of them charged the two youngsters. Kaneko knew this technique. She'd been trying to recreate it with Naruto's help, but she had yet to find any success. She just lacked the talent in Yujutsu that her older sister had. All of these are fakes, Kaneko explained to Ravel. They're not real. Ravel nodded in understanding. Are they similar to Naruto-sama's shadow clones? Not really. Those are physical copies. These are just illusions. Could the real one be hidden amongst them? It's possible. In that case, let's smoke her out. Right? Ravel leapt into the air while Kaneko bent over until she stood on her hands and feet. Her ears twitched and her tail writhed. Lips peeled back to reveal sharp canines as she unleashed a very cat-like hiss. Her amber eyes flickered. She could feel the senjutsu chakra pouring into her. It was a dark, malignant presence, a pressure that pushed down on her conscience. But she bore with it, ignoring the darkness and focusing only on what she knew were her own feelings. Just like Naruto, she would not be defeated by the world's evil. The Kurokas closed the distance. They all attacked Kaneko in unison, but none of them were able to find their mark. In that moment, Kaneko blurred into action. While knights had speed and rooks possessed strength, Kaneko had learned to supplement her lack of speed by using senjutsu to sense the presence of others around her and interpret their attacks. It was almost like foresight, except not quite. She couldn't see the future, but she could use the minute changes in a person's ki to predict how they would attack. All of the Kurokas around her were illusions. They lacked the necessary ki to make a complete being, so Kaneko ignored them. The illusory figures passed through her one after another. 1, 2, 3, 4. GGU. Kaneko winced as a ball of compressed senjutsu chakra slammed into her gut. She skid along the ground, coming to a stop several meters away. A wince escaped her as she held a hand to her stomach. Steam wafted from it, and she could feel where her skin had been burnt by the foreign chakra. "You tried to sense where I was using senjutsu, weren't you?" Kuroka crossed her arms. "You should have realized that wouldn't work on me. Not only am I a senjutsu user, too, but I'm also far better at using it than you. You'll need to try harder than that, Sharon." "Don't call me that," Kaneko said through gritted teeth. "Why shouldn't I? That's your name, isn't it? Sharon. Sharon, Sharon, Sharon." "Stop it." Kaneko sent several senjutsu spheres at her older sister, but they were all knocked away with ease. Kuroka laughed at her. "You really are inexperienced at this, aren't you, poor Sharon? I know, why don't you come back with me?" Yellow eyes lit up and a delightful smile appeared Kuroka's face. "If you come with me, I'll teach you everything that you need to know about senjutsu. I'm learning just fine without you." Kaneko threw several more spheres, though it was all for naught, as each one was either knocked aside or outright destroyed by Kuroka, who used her superior senjutsu abilities to negate them. The older Nekosho's fists blurred, each strike smacking a sphere, dispersing it into elementary particles. "You're such a stubborn child, NYA. Why won't you just come to your senses and come home with me?" "Because Kaneko already has a home." Revel floated in the sky. With her arms spread wide and pinions of flame bursting from her back, she created several dozen birds of fire, swallows. Each one flapped its wings, creating fiery after images. With a combined war cry, they swooped down and tried to batter Kuroka. Instead, they were blown back when the Nekusho made several symbols in the air, and a massive burst of wind gushed from nowhere, slamming into the birds and knocking them off course. Each bird dispersed harmlessly several meters out. "You shouldn't speak out of turn, little girl," a voice hissed behind Revel. Kaneko's eyes widened when she saw her sister hovering behind her friend. "Revel, move." Revel tried to respond, to move just as Kaneko advised, but before she could, her body was engulfed in purple mist. What is?" Revel hacked and coughed. Her once brilliant wings flared to inexistence, dispersing as if they'd been doused with water. With her wings no longer there, she fell to the ground, and she would have broke her neck had Kaneko not caught her before it could happen. She cradled Revel to her chest, listening as the blonde girl whimpered and coughed. Gritting her teeth, she glared at Kuroka. "What did you do to Revel?" Kaneko demanded as her sister landed lightly on the ground. "Oh, I just gave her a little present, NYA." Kuroka's mysterious smile bothered Kaneko. No, it upset her. How could she smile after what she had just done? "That poison mist of mine is quite powerful, and Revel is still an immature phoenix. She won't be able to regenerate from that sort of damage for a while." Kuroka's smile widened. "Which means it's just you and me, Sharon, so why don't you show me what you can do, NYA?" Kaneko looked down at her friend. She and Revel had spent so much time together since the Phoenix Heiress had arrived. They'd done almost everything together. They ate breakfast together, they bathed together, and they had even started sleeping together in the same room. Revel was her best friend. And Kuroka had just hurt her. Gently setting Revel on the ground, Kaneko brushed a few blonde strands of hair from her friend's face. She stood back up, her fists clenched and her golden amber eyes narrowed. "I'm going to kick your ass, Kuroka Oni-sama." Kuroka actually blinked. That was a rather vulgar thing to say, NYA. "I think you've been spending too much time around Naruto-aki." Kaneko didn't say anything. Words were no longer necessary. With her lips peeled back in a snarl, Kaneko charged at her sister, intent on paying the woman back for what she'd done to her friend. Devil Ninja, Rias and Akeno were in a bind. "Take this." The powers of destruction burst from Rias's hand like crimson hellfire. It struck Biku in the chest, who laughed as he shrugged the attack off like it was nothing. "Kakeke, you'll have to do better than that, Boobzilla." Rias gritted her teeth. This man's abrasive personality really annoyed her. He was even worse than Naruto, who at least had the decency to be polite. This monkey wouldn't know what polite meant if it smacked him in the face. Unfortunately, much as she would have loved to wipe that stupid look off his face, Rias and Akeno were facing a problem they'd been experiencing a lot these days. Someone stronger than them. This monkey, though she was loath to admit it, appeared to be stronger than both her and Akeno combined. Nothing she and her friend threw at him worked. The powers of destruction splashed off his armor like water. Even Akeno's lightning attacks were dispersed before they could reach him. "Then why don't you try this on for size?" Akeno shouted as lightning lanced from her fingertips. Biku grinned as he spun his bow staff around in front of him, which moved so quickly it blurred until it looked like a solid circle. Lightning struck the makeshift shield, glancing off it and plowing into the ground beside him. Biku then slammed the butt of his staff into the ground. The staff extended quickly, shooting up to smack Akeno in the stomach before she could retaliate. It continued growing longer and longer, taking the fallen angel devil hybrid with it. "Akeno!" Rias shouted before glaring at their enemy. "Don't think I'm going to let you get away with this." Power of destruction coalesced as Rias channeled her considerable power into the palm of her left hand, then fired it off in a baseball-sized sphere. Biku saw the sphere and grinned. His bow staff retracted back to its original length, and he thrust it at the sphere, striking it dead center. The tiny ball of destructive energy exploded, engulfing everything within a 5-meter radius. When the blast cleared, a massive crater had formed. Only a single section, which jutted out of the ground like a pillar, remained, and standing on top of that pillar was an unharmed Biku. "Kakeke, that wasn't bad. Not bad at all. You got some power to yaw, Red," Biku complimented with a cheerfully mocking cackle. "But, you've still got a long ways to go before you can be a match for me. Now prepare yourself, Kinoun." A golden cloud suddenly flew in from behind Biku, who leapt into the air and landed on it. Once he was secure, the cloud shot toward Rias like a bullet. Gritting her teeth, Rias gathered the power of destruction into her hands. If it was a battle this man wanted, then it was a battle he would get. "Akeno," a loud voice shouted from across the battlefield. Rias looked up to see a figure flying toward them on 10 black wings. She sighed. This battle has just gotten a lot more complicated. Devil Ninja. Naruto felt like a freight train had slammed into him. The giant clawed hand swatted him away like he was a fly. The air left him and a sharp pain filled his chest. Several ribs had just snapped. He could feel them like poison-laced daggers piercing his chest. When he hit the ground, that pain was magnified considerably, to the point where he couldn't even see the world spinning around him. He came to a stop several meters away, his back protesting as he crashed into a tree. The battle had not been going well for him. Ever since his body had become racked with pain, he'd been unable to use even the simplest of jutsu. Hell, he could barely even move. Kurama had also cut their connection, so he couldn't talk to his furry friend to find out what was wrong with him. Naruto climbed to his feet, wincing several times as agony flared in his body. It wasn't pain aimed at any specific spot, but everywhere, all over. Chakra. It was his own chakra burning through his chakra coils. Already several of his tenketsu points had burst with violent red chakra. It had been agonizing at first, but the pain was beginning to dull. His body was growing numb. He wasn't sure if that was a good thing. Damn it. What the hell is wrong with me? Chuckling reached his ears. Azidahaka's earth-rumbling footsteps nearly knocked him back down. The massive reptile lumbered over to him, jagged teeth grinning down at Naruto, who knew he must have looked pathetic. "You're not looking too good," Azidahaka said, chuckling. "You were talking such a big game before, yet now look at you, groveling on the ground, barely able to stand up, like some pathetic worm. And here I thought you'd give me a challenge." Naruto didn't answer. He knew that anything he said would be used against him. Instead of responding to the dragon, he turned his attention inward. "Kurama. Damn it, Kurama. Talk me, what the hell is going on?" However, Kurama didn't respond. Naruto didn't receive a single word in response to his question. He was left with silence. "Nothing to say. Azidahaka asked. That's fine. I suppose the weak have no right to talk anyway. In which case, I believe it's time I ended this, and you, in a single blow. Naruto grimaced as Azidahaka raised another massively clawed hand. He didn't know why his chakra wasn't working, but the whys didn't really matter right now. The fact remained, his chakra was burning his body from the inside out, and Naruto couldn't use any of his jutsu anymore until this issue was resolved, whatever the problem was. Unfortunately, it looked like he was out of time. Damn, how'd I get out of this mess? The claw came down and was stopped by a body interposing itself between Naruto and the clawed hand. His armor was dented. Deformed steel adorned a frame that appeared battered but still breathing. The helmet that had once been situated on his head was gone, having shattered some time ago. Metatron. He stood between Naruto and the dragon, Azidahaka, his long silver hair hanging about his frame, and his green eyes locked onto Naruto. You, a strained word. Metatron grunted as the dragon roared and tried to crush him beneath his hand. That technique you used. That was the shadow clone jutsu, was it not? Naruto blinked. What an odd question to be asking someone when they were both nearing death. Yes? Metatron nodded. I thought so. Woo-ah. With impressive strength, Metatron threw the clawed hand off him, then rushed over to Naruto. Azidahaka growled, annoyed, and tried to crush them both, but Metatron's sword materialized in his hand, and he used it to hack away at the claw. Azidahaka reared back in surprise as gashes opened up in his palm. Then steam rose from the surface, as if the blood inside of his veins was being boiled. What is this? Can you stand, Ninja-sama? Yeah, Naruto clambered to his feet, wincing. He felt a little better. Well, he felt numb. That probably wasn't a good thing. I can stand. Wait. Ninja-sama? I am pleased to hear that. We'll need to work together if we want to defeat this dragon. Naruto stared at Metatron as if the man had sprouted wings. Oh, wait. He had sprouted wings. He was Angel. Weren't you against working with devils? I was, Metatron admitted. I still am, however, for you, I shall make an exception. Naruto didn't really get it, but he figured this meant he had a new ally. I'm glad to hear that. I could use the help. Very well, then. You and I shall work together. Now, please produce those magnificent clones of yours, Ninja-sama. I have a plan, but the clones are necessary. Naruto was very disturbed by the gleam in Metatron's eyes as the man spoke of his shadow clones. However, even if Naruto were inclined to produce them, there was a slight problem. I can't use those right now. I'm sorry, what? Yeah. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. My chakra is acting all funny and stuff. I can't use my jutsu for some reason. That's why I've been doing so poorly against this dragon. Metatron was silent for a long moment. Then, well, I think we might be screwed. I think you're right, Naruto agreed as Azidahaka roared and tried to crush them beneath its palm. Devil Ninja. Issei felt his back squeal in protest as he was slammed into the ground. It felt like his spine had splintered into 1,000 tiny fragments. His vision went white, then black, and then it came into blurry focus. A figure hovered above him. Clad in white, his helmet gone, Valley Lucifer's pale face was twisted into a displeased frown. He looked disappointed, incredibly so. Is this the strength of the Securite? Surely my rival isn't so weak? Issei would have snapped at the other man about how he'd like to see him face a dragon, then fight a sacred gear user, but he felt like he'd swallowed his tongue. He also couldn't breathe very well, so speaking was difficult. HMPH. This is pathetic. I came all this way because I'd heard that my rival was strong. Now I see that all those rumors I'd heard were false. Valley smirked down at Issei, who glared up at him. I wonder, do you think you'll become stronger if I give you a reason to fight? If you're anything like that soft-hearted fool, Naruto, then I'm sure the death of a loved one will make you take me more seriously. Issei would have questioned how this guy knew Naruto-sensei, but then he heard the rest of Valley's words and realized what he intended to do. Asia stood several dozen meters away, hidden behind one of the few remaining walls. Her eyes locked with Issei's while Valley raised a hand, a bright white orb forming in front of it. Say goodbye to your friend, Valley said, grinning. Don't you fucking touch her, oof. With strength that Issei didn't know he had, he launched himself into the air and rammed into Valley headfirst. The Hakuryuko gasped as all the air was driven from his lungs. Issei gritted his teeth as he felt his neck creak. It hurt, but he wasn't about to let someone he cared about get hurt. Boost. Overbooster. As Issei once more transformed into the Welsh dragon armor, Valley gave a bloody grin. Now this is more like it. Let's keep fighting, Devil Ninja. Naruto was feeling a little better. Sure, everything still hurt. It felt like his skin had been peeled off and his body dumped into a vat of acid. Still, that was better than being numb, which could never mean anything good. He and Metatron wove through stomping claws and numerous spells. Metatron wielded his sword with incredible expertise and precision. He was also surprisingly apt at dodging, and Naruto could have sworn he'd seen the angel use the replacement technique at least once, though he was sure that he must have been seeing things. An angel using ninja techniques? Preposterous? His ability to use chakra had returned, too, which was good because it meant he wasn't helpless anymore. He couldn't do much with it yet, as performing jutsu still hurt beyond all reasonable comprehension. But smaller techniques only did minimal damage. Kurama still hadn't spoken with him since cutting their connection. You worms are awfully good at dodging. Azidahaka roared, and suddenly, the ground and sky lit up with hundreds of magic circles, which surrounded Naruto and Metatron. Glowing bright red, crackling with vicious energy, each circle looked ready to unleash devastation upon them. Well, Naruto started, this isn't good. Indeed, Ninja-sama, Metatron agreed. This is quite bad. Naruto looked at the angel oddly seconds before the area they stood on exploded. It looks like I missed. Naruto and Metatron hovered in the air, having used the replacement technique to switch themselves out with a log. So, you can use ninjutsu, Naruto exclaimed. Of course I can, Ninja-sama. I have been studying up on ninja techniques for many years now. Metatron's chest swelled with pride. Although I have never had the chance to use the few techniques I know in combat, I'm pleased to see they work. How many techniques do you know? Only 3. Let me guess. Replacement, transformation, clone. Metatron nodded. Those are the ones. Stop talking and start fighting. Apparently impatient for the battle to renew, Azidahaka spewed searing hot flames from all 3 of his mouths. The trio of simultaneous fire attacks combined into a single, massive tornado of destructive energy that threatened to wash over Naruto and Metatron. However, neither of them had any intention of taking such an attack head-on and quickly replaced themselves with another pair of logs. Naruto, a voice said in his head. Kurama, where the hell have you been? Me? I've just been dealing with your fuck-up. The hell is that supposed to mean? It means you're an idiot. Did you honestly think you could just take the Longinus spear to the chest and come out unscathed? What kind of moron lets himself get stabbed anyway? I was trying to make a point. A massive claw tried to smash Naruto into the ground. He leapt back. The ground where he'd been standing on exploded with dust and debris, as the very earth seemed to shake. And what point was that? How to be stupid? No, I wanted him to know that it didn't matter what he did. That I was too strong for him to beat. That I was more powerful than him. Has your hubris grown since last we spoke? Kurama roared. You might be more powerful than that human, but that spear would have killed you if not for me. It very nearly did kill you. You mean, that pain you've been feeling is due to your body trying to rip itself apart? Your very existence was threatened. Naruto. Had I not been in here healing you, you would have been destroyed. 3 massive beams of localized fire shot from Azidahaka's 3 mouths. Naruto sent wind chakra to his feet, launching himself quickly into the air. Fire burned and earth was boiled, turning red hot and becoming liquid like magma. Steam rose from the ground in massive quantities, clogging the air and making it impossible to see. You really are reckless. You've let your power go to your head, Naruto, and you have forgotten one fundamental fact. That power you are wielding, the power that makes you practically immortal, isn't yours. It is merely a side benefit to having me sealed inside of you. However, without that regeneration ability, your power is, at best, on the same level as an ultimate class devil. Azidahaka tried to take a chunk out of Metatron, who replaced himself with a log, reappeared above the head that tried to bite him, and stabbed his sword into the dragon's eye. Rather than roaring in agony, Azidahaka laughed in joy. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. It's not fun if you can't even hurt me. Let's see you do that again. You're right, I'm sorry. I let your power go to my head. Do not forget this, Naruto. No matter how much power I have, you can only use a little bit of it. Your body cannot handle more than 1/100th of my power. Naruto's body was a vessel that contained a creature far too powerful for it to handle. In some ways, it could almost be likened to a vase. Kurama did an admirable job of keeping his power contained, but if he ever poured too much into the vessel, then much like a vase with too much water and soil packed into it, Naruto's body would break. Naruto soared over Azidahaka's leftmost head and heel, dropped it with a wind chakra enhanced foot. The head crashed into the ground, where the melted earth tried to boil the dragon's scales. I understand, good, then see to it that you don't do something this stupid again. I won't have my only friend dying on me because he wants to be an idiot. You got, Kurama. Now that you've been healed, I expect you to show this giant lizard who's in charge here. Right. With Kurama giving him the go-ahead, Naruto felt his chakra surge. It no longer hurt to wield his own chakra. It swirled around him, strengthening him, empowering him. Kurama had even given him an extra boost. While it wasn't much, he could feel a little bit of his friend's immense power mixing with his own. It would be enough. Metatron! Naruto shouted. Stand back and let me show you how a real ninja battles. Naruto was very disturbed by the sparkle in Metatron's eyes. Yes. Ninja-sama. Where do you think you're going? Azidahaka growled as Metatron, with a mighty flap of his 10 wings, soared into the air. One of the dragon's 3 heads tried to attack him, and several magical circles appeared to increase the intensity of the intended aerial bombarded. The fire that had been growing inside of Azidahaka's mouth exploded when Naruto sent a concentrated ball of wind chakra into it. The wind fed the flames, turning the tiny ball into a raging inferno that engulfed the entire head. Ha ha ha. Interesting. How interesting. The 2 heads not engulfed in fire laughed. Let's see you do that again. With pleasure. Shadow clone jutsu. Dozens of Naruto appeared out of thin air. Azidahaka cackled as he systematically destroyed each one. His claws slashed them apart. His fire burnt them to a crisp. Lightning struck several of them, the clones convulsing for several seconds until they popped. Clones were destroyed in whole swaths. Dozens upon dozens died a terrible death. The real one wasn't among them. He was above Azidahaka, descending toward the dragon, 2 gigantic balls of rotating wind chakras swirling above his hands. Suin Rasen Shuriken. Aiming a hand at each head, a large magic circle appeared behind the Rasen Shurikens. Naruto used the devil magic to launch the Rasenshurikens forward with a bell-like shriek. The 2 massive balls of swirling wind chakras struck the heads, expanding until each head was completely engulfed within the attack, which looked like 2 giant spheres of insane cutting winds. The attacks soon dissipated to reveal that both heads were gone. Nothing but stumps bloody remained. However, even as the necks hung there, headless, gore dripping from them, the heads quickly grew back. Ha ha ha, oh, yes, that pain is so good, more, I need more. Is this guy dragon, a masochist? You want more? Naruto snarled. Fine, have some more, boil release. Unrivaled strength. Naruto's chakra began to boil. Large amounts of steam emitted from his body, the pressure inside of him building up, increasing his strength proportional to the amount of built-up steam. He descended onto the center head and unleashed all that pressure into a single blow. Erupting propulsion fist. Steam detonated everywhere as Naruto's punch caused Azidahaka's muzzle to cave in. The dragon howled, somewhere between a cry and a laugh, as blood erupted from his muzzle before it was boiled by the steam. How do you like that? Naruto crowed before experiencing shock when the head he'd just demolished quickly became a hole again. He had just a second to realize the danger he was in before its jaws clamped down around him. There was a brief moment where he felt himself being crushed to the roof of Azidahaka's mouth by a fat tongue, and then he slid down the creature's gullet. No! Naruto screamed in terror, traumatizing memories of being swallowed by another scaled creature surfacing in his mind. I don't want to be swallowed by another giant reptile. Within his cage, Kurama sighed. Not again. The near-omnipotent creature with the powers of Otsutsuki Kagaya and 8 other Biju sighed to himself. Devil Ninja. Issei felt fire burn his chest as his armor shattered when Valley kneed him. Struggling past the pain, Issei unleashed a fierce battle cry and headbutted Valley. As his fellow sacred gear user stumbled backwards, his helmet cracked. Issei grabbed the other boy's arm and pulled him into a fist, shattering the white breastplate. "Ha, ha, you're stronger than I expected," Valley complimented. "TCH, and you're more annoying than I expected," Issei declared. The two ran at each other, and their clashing fists created a shockwave that tore apart the ground. Devil Ninja, this is disgusting. Naruto wondered if it was his fate to be constantly eaten by ginormous reptiles. Seriously, he knew that Negi would have a cow hearing him say this, but it almost felt as if fate had determined, through some inexplicable logic that he would never understand, that any gigantic reptile he came into contact with would eat him. You have the worst luck when it comes to reptiles. Shut up. No commentary from the peanut gallery. HMPH, so, how do you plan on getting out of this? I don't think the same trick you used on that snake will work here. This dragon's hide was much tougher than any snake's, and even its insides felt more solid than diamonds. That meant he would have to use a wind jutsu, but it couldn't be any old jutsu. It had to be strong enough to cut through hide, but weak enough that it wouldn't damage him. He just finished healing. The last thing he wanted was to get injured and have Kurama heal him all over again. Which meant wind jutsu was out of the question, damn it. I guess there's no choice. I'm gonna have to use that jutsu. Kurama sucked in a breath. You don't mean that jutsu, do you? Yes. Naruto tried to nod solemnly. It was a little hard when you were stuck in a stomach. I'm talking about that jutsu. Within the seal, Kurama shuddered. He was not looking forward to this. After several seconds of struggling, Naruto put his hands together and slowly made several hand seals. Konohagakure's hidden technique, indigestion no jutsu. Devil Ninja, Azidahaka felt strange. His stomach was gurgling in a manner that he hadn't experienced very often. Dragons rarely went to the bathroom, after all. However, that was exactly what he felt the need to do now, take a massive dump. A loud rumbling ripped through the campus, quickly followed by a massive stench. Metatron, who floated in the air above Azidahaka and was therefore the closest, nearly died as he choked on the horrid fumes that rose from the large pile of dung underneath the dragon's rear. Oh, Lord Almighty, I think I'm gonna be sick. Within that pile of crap, a single hand emerged. The hand was followed by another hand, and then a head before, finally, crawled out from the massive mountain of shit. Naruto had never felt more disgusted than he did right now. The nauseating scent of dragon crap stung his nose, threatening to make him vomit. It was worse than anything he'd ever smelled before. If that wasn't humiliating enough, then he was also covered in the stuff, caked in it from head to toe. Few things could ever be more putrid than being covered in crap. This is humiliating, Naruto muttered harshly. It's disgusting is what it is, Kurama interjected. I don't know how you could do something like that. It was necessary. Naruto went through several more hand seals. Water suddenly burst from his pores, crap splattering everywhere, including on Azidahaka, who reared back as his own crap splashed against all three of its heads. Some of it got into the dragon's eyes, making him thrash. Unfortunately, even though Naruto was now clean, he couldn't get rid of the stench. This is so gross. Incredibly gross, and I'm angry. Good, because I'm pretty pissed off myself. This dragon's ass is grass. It had better be. Ninja-sama. Metatron dropped down to the ground. There was a relieved look on his face. Ninja-sama. I am so glad to see that you're— He stopped talking. His nose wrinkled. You stink. Gee, y'all think? Naruto said dryly. I am being quite serious here, Ninja-sama. You reek. Yeah, I know. Your stench reminds me of this time father took a dump. He didn't do so often, but when he did, all of heaven could smell it. Naruto twitched. Thanks for that. Gra, I can't see. Azidahaka thrashed around, his three heads shaking back and forth. Grimy brown liquid crap stung the beast's 6 eyes. Naruto cracked his neck as he prepared to finish this thing. It was clear to him now that he couldn't use any of his weaker jutsu. If he wanted to really defeat Azidahaka, then he would have to use a technique that could destroy the dragon in a single blow. I guess there's no choice. A small sliver of regret worms its way into his gut. Kurama, I can't give you much chakra. Your body already has more of my chakra than it can safely handle. However, I think I can lend you enough for this. Thank you. Naruto felt his connection to Kurama open beyond what it normally did. The gates, figurative of the seal that kept the powerful Biju at bay, opened a small crack, and Kurama's chakra poured forth. He could feel it infusing him with power. The ground around him cracked. Pebbles rose from the ground. Even Azidahaka stopped thrashing as the feeling of Kurama's immense power descended upon the battlefield. "What's this? You're quite the daring one to hide this power from me." Naruto didn't respond as he reined Kurama's power in, cloaking himself in it. 10 orbs appeared around him, each one akin to a black hole. They were perfectly round and smooth, but were dark beyond compare, like tiny motes of nothing floating in a sea of color. Ninja, Sama, Metatron gawked at him, but Naruto ignored the angel. He stepped forward, the ground indenting underneath him. Wincing, he further compressed Kurama's power into himself. Doing so felt like taking a fire jutsu to his chakra coils, but he didn't stop. He couldn't let Kurama's power run wild. He took one step, then two, and then he vanished. A loud bang, like the firing of a cannon, went off, and suddenly, a large hole appeared in Azidahaka's flank. Blood and bits of muscle scattered across the earth. The dragon roared in anguish at the unexpected attack. Darkness appeared above Azidahaka, an oblong mass of black, which soon receded to reveal Naruto. The black mass broke apart like a cell undergoing osmosis, then it broke again and again, until 10 orbs floated in the air around him. Stretching out his hand, Naruto willed 9 of the truth balls to extend and wrap around Azidahaka. The dragon squirmed and struggled, roaring as it tried to break free, but the bindings holding the evil dragon were far stronger. The last orb came to his hand, shifting, morphing, changing from an orb into a shakuho. Landing, Naruto tapped his shakuho against the ground. Azidahaka was lifted off the ground by the 9 truth-seeking balls and tossed into the air. The dragon flapped its mighty wings, creating fierce winds that tore apart the earth and uprooted trees. Naruto gathered the 9 truth-seeking balls into a single sphere, which enlarged to several times the normal truth-seeking ball's mass before it compressed. He then added wind chakra to the mix. A bell-like shriek, shrill and vicious, reverberated across the battlefield. Tapping the swirling object with his shakuho, Naruto sent the ball soaring toward Azidahaka. Massive-tailed beast ball Rasen Shuriken. The ball struck Azidahaka, expanding quickly. A giant orb formed within the sky, a black sphere of nothing, so dark it seemed to absorb all light. Darkness eclipsed the planet. The sun was blotted out. Invisible as the massive sphere of inky blackness consumed all the light particles in the area. Then, like a ripple spreading across the water's surface, the orb twisted in on itself, shrinking and becoming smaller. However, rather than disappear, the sphere pulsed before, like a star-going nova. A massive explosion of light rocked the sky. And then the world turned white. Devil Ninja, Kaneko was breathing heavily as she continued battling her sister. The battle had been going on for some time, and throughout their entire engagement, Kaneko hadn't injured her sister once. Several meters behind her, Revel, lying on the ground, moaned in pain as the poison sapped her strength. "No, no, no, Sharon," Kuroka chastised as she wove through several senjutsu spheres. "You need to use finesse when attacking. You can't expect to beat with me brute force, especially since I'm so much stronger than you." "Shut up." Air blew through Kaneko's gritted teeth as she launched several more attacks. The spheres flew all over the place, trying to hit the constantly moving Kuroka. She then extended her arms, and several thin strings glimmered into existence, each one connected to a sphere. Yanking on them, Kaneko pulled all of the senjutsu spheres back toward her sister, who suddenly found herself surrounded. "Oh, my. So you weren't just attacking me with no rhyme or reason," Kuroka determined, her lips curling into a deceivingly happy smile. "How interesting, NYA." Kaneko growled and yanked on the spheres, causing them to converge on Kuroka's position. They exploded brilliantly, like a dozen stars going off at once. Kaneko raised an arm to shield her eyes from the brightness. When the light died down, there was no sign of her sister, only a decently sized crater. "That was pretty good," a voice said in her ear. Kaneko's eyes widened as she spun around and crossed her arms. A fist slammed into her crossed arms. She felt her bones snap as she skidded across the ground. Tears leaked from her eyes, but she shunted the agony of her broken limbs aside and forced them to move. White energy laced her hands. Kaneko used them to defend against her sister's attacks. Kuroka proved to her that she wasn't physically weak just because she was a bishop. Every fist that Kaneko blocked made her wince. Every kick that she dodged created powerful gusts of wind that nearly knocked her off balance. Kuroka was overpowering her at every turn. NGG. Steam rose from Kaneko's hand as she blocked a fist. She clenched her teeth as a jolt traveled through her arm. Her legs shook as she struggled against her sister's overwhelming physical prowess. Kya oof! Kaneko gasped, her breath leaving her as she hit the ground. Her skin was rubbed raw as she rolled along the earthen floor, and her bones were jarred from the numerous impacts as she tumbled. Sharp pain flared in her nerves when her shoulder was torn from its socket. She then came to a stop, her limbs twitching as she struggled to stand. "You shouldn't get up, Sharon," Kuroka chided. "You've been injured. Allow this humble Oni-chan to heal you. Then we can go back home together." Kaneko's eyes widened, and her struggles increased. She didn't want to go back with her sister. She didn't like her sister. She hated her sister. "Someone, please, I don't." Just then, seconds before Kuroka reached her, the entire world was covered in a brilliant white light. Devil Ninja. When the light vanished, Azidahaka was gone. There was nothing left. Neither flesh nor bone nor blood nor muscle, not even ashes remained. "Kurama, I know what you're going to ask, and Azidahaka didn't survive," Kurama said, pausing. "How do you feel?" "Sick." Naruto looked down at his hands. "Kurama, how much longer am I going to have to kill? How many more times am I going to go against Ero Sennin's desire to bring peace through understanding?" "Naruto, you know as well as I do that some people cannot be allowed to live, lest they kill more people. I hate this. Is that why you've been holding back ever since you regained your strength?" "I guess." Naruto looked at his hands, they were shaking. Closing his eyes, Naruto willed his hands to stop shaking. He could worry about his own insecurities later. "Ninja, Sama," Metatron muttered. It was only after the angel had spoken that Naruto realized that Seraph was standing right beside him. "Holy crap, when did you get here?" Naruto shouted as he leapt 15 feet into the air. Metatron blinked. "I have been here the whole time." "Oh." Naruto blinked. He hadn't even sensed the angel's presence. "Right, well, let's go. I need to find Kaneko and the others." "Of course, Ninja-sama." As the two began to move, a thought occurred to Naruto. "By the way, what's up with calling me Ninja-sama?" "Devil Ninja," Rias panted as the light and fierce winds died down. She looked around and couldn't see anyone near her. The once grassy field was scoured with pockmarks and burns. Several craters marked where Biku's fist had destroyed the earth. There was no sign of the monkey himself, however. "It looks like he ran," Akeno said, floating to the ground beside Rias. She looked pretty banged up. Bruises covered much of her body and a good portion of her clothing was torn. "So it seems," Rias frowned. "He must have used that massive explosion in the sky to facilitate his escape." "Akeno." Barakiel landed beside the raven-haired female. "Are you okay?" "Why are you here?" Akeno scowled at the man. "Have you not been able to figure out that you are not wanted? Leave." Akeno, I just wanted to leave." The man stood in silence for a second, then, with an agonized expression, flapped his wings and took off. Rias watched the man go with mixed feelings. It was clear to her that he wanted to bond with his daughter, but she didn't know how to feel about it. She shook her head. There would be a time to think about this later. "Come on," she said to Akeno. "We need to find the others." "Of course, bucko." The two took off into the sky, leaving behind an empty battlefield. "Devil Ninja, that attack just now," Kuroka mused to herself as the light and raging gale winds died down. There was senjutsu infused into that attack. That must mean Naruto was the one who made that big explosion. Kaneko knew that way better than her sister. She was intimately familiar with Naruto's chakra, so she knew what it felt like. Naruto, her body ached. She was tired. Her muscles felt sluggish and incooperative. No matter how much she struggled, no matter how hard she tried to pick herself back up, all she could manage was to make her arms and legs twitch. Then, Kuroka turned back to her. "Time to take you back with me." No, Kaneko wanted to get up, to stand back up and keep fighting. She couldn't, however. Her body refused to obey her will. She was simply too tired to do anything more than lie there on the ground, inert like a vegetable. Naruto, please, as if hearing her silent plea, Naruto appeared before her. 1 second he wasn't there, and then the next he was. He stood in front of Kaneko, his glowing white form blocking Kuroka from coming any closer. The raven-haired older sister stopped walking when she saw him, and she crossed her arms and pouted. I think you've had enough fun, Kuroka, Naruto said. TCH, are you going to get in my way, NYA? If I must. A standoff seemed to ensue. Naruto and Kuroka eyed each other before, with casual yet surprising grace. Kuroka backed down. HMPH, if you're the one I have to get through, then I suppose there's no other choice. I can't beat you in a straight-up battle, so I'll leave, for now. Be sure to take care of my Chiron until I return. A portal opened up behind, which the woman stepped back into. It then closed, leaving not a trace of her presence. Naruto turned and knelt next to Kaneko, lifting the girl into his arms. Naruto, are you alright? Kaneko? Tired. The white-haired girl snuggled against his chest, taking comfort in his presence and the feeling of his chakra. She wrinkled her nose. You smell like shit. Really? Naruto murmured, his right eye twitching. Despite how horrible Naruto smelled, Kaneko was too tired to care. Her body demanded rest, and so she fell asleep, her nose still wrinkled. She really hoped Naruto would take a bath, and soon. Devil Ninja, Naruto smiled down at the girl as her breathing slowed and her body relaxed. She had fought pretty hard, and against a superior opponent like Kuroka to boot. Undoubtedly, the girl was beyond exhausted. Naruto, a weak voice called out to him. Naruto looked down at Kaneko, but when he realized that she wasn't the one who'd spoken, he looked around the field before his eyes landed on Revel. The young Phoenix heiress lay on the ground several meters away. Her clothing was torn in several places, and her breasts were exposed, but she didn't seem to notice. Naruto created another clone, which picked up Revel gently, as if she were a princess. Revel, despite not being 100% cognizant of her surrounds, had the decency to blush. What are you? I'm carrying you. What does it look like I'm doing? You're too tired to walk on your own, right? I guess. Revel buried her face into the clone's chest. She then looked up at him, only her eyes and red cheeks visible. But don't get any funny ideas, got that? Got it. Naruto, another voice called out to him, a very familiar voice. Turning around, Naruto saw Rias, Kiba, and the 2 exorcists running up to him. Hey, you guys, Naruto greeted as the group stopped in front of him. Naruto, are you alright? That dragon, Naruto grimaced at the reminder of Azidahaka. Even though Azidahaka had been an evil dragon, he still felt guilt weighing on his conscience. He knew it was foolish to feel guilt over this. Azidahaka had been evil, and he'd killed many people, but the act of killing had become repulsive to him. It felt like he was smacking Jiraiya's ideals in the face. I'm fine, Naruto said, mastering his emotions. I'm glad to hear that, Rias said, smiling, though her smile soon turned into a frown. By the way, what is he doing here? Everyone turned to Metatron, who stood next to Naruto. He'd been silent up to now, but when he saw all the looks being directed his way, the Seraph gazed upon them with his calm and elegant demeanor. I am here because Ninja-sama is here. Everyone paused, as if unsure of what to make of that statement. Ninja, Rias began. Sama? Irina finished unsurely. Let's not get into that right now, Naruto said. He didn't want to deal with whatever weird thing Metatron had for ninjas. Anyway, where are Akano, Asia and Eyes? The group looked at each other. Naruto could sense a slight tension in them, like a giant snake summons coiling around them, constricting them with worry. We don't know where Eyes or Asia are, Rias said at last. Akino's gone to look for them. Ah. By the way, Naruto, Rias began again, yes? You reek. I know, he said solemnly, his shoulders slumping. Devil Ninja, Issei knew he'd lost the moment his body stopped working. He lay on the ground, staring up at the figure looming over him. His opponent, One Valley Lucifer, had beaten him, thoroughly and utterly. To say that he'd been routed was a gross understatement. From the very start of this battle, Valley's victory had already been guaranteed. I'm pretty disappointed in you, Issei, Valley said. When Naruto was held in captivity by the Chaos Brigade, he would always talk about his precious perverted student, and how much potential you had. However, while you have some strength, I'm not seeing anything that would make someone like him proud of you. Issei opened his mouth and tried to say, "Fuck you." However, it ended up sounding like, "Wufuwugu," instead. Valley blew out a deep breath. "As you are right now, you're not worthy of being considered my rival. You're not even worthy of being killed." Valley, Arthur and LeFay Pendragon ran up to him. "It's time to leave. We're pulling back." "I imagined so. After all, our objective here is complete." Valley ran a hand through his hair. "Man, to think my rival would be this weak." Issei wanted to tell Valley that he wasn't weak. However, in the face of what happened to him, of their battle, of his loss, he couldn't dredge up the words. Not that he would have been able to speak anyway, but still. Valley soon left, stepping through a portal that Arthur opened using a holy sword. When the portal vanished, Issei was left alone. He would eventually be found by Asia and Akano. However, even they would be unable to help him come to terms with his defeat. Devil Ninja, the battle was over. It seemed that, with the death of Azidahaka, the Chaos Brigade had lost their nerve and decided to flee. A few had fought to their last breath, but the majority, realizing their untenable position, had fled through portals that had opened up for them. No doubt every member of the Chaos Brigade had been granted a special emergency escape device, which was what allowed them to beat such a hasty retreat. Sirzex looked at the damage done to school, at the bodies lying on the ground, and his shoulders slumped as regret gnawed at his insides. There was so much death, so much destruction, and for what? What reason could anyone have for causing this much sorrow? Sometimes it feels like the matter of devils and angels will never end in anything but violence. For a long time now, he'd been making great strides to bring peace to his people. Gone were the days when might made right. In this era, those who thought with cooler heads and compassionate hearts prevailed, or they should have. Seeing the carnage wrought before him made Sirzex feel as if all that he strove for was naught but the pipe dream of a foolish idealist. Michael strolled up to Sirzex as he contemplated his many regrets this day. The Archangel of Heaven, its current leader, maintained a calm demeanor even when surrounded by such devastation. Sirzex envied his poise. "All of the civilians have been evacuated safely, I'm guessing?" Michael asked. "Yes, though it took longer than I expected. We were ambushed, and several agents planted within the emissaries tried to sow chaos among the politicians. They were defeated, but, well. You regret the loss of life? Loss of life is always regrettable. However, I have accepted that it is sometimes necessary. What I regret is the unnecessary loss of life. None of those people had to die if they just laid down their weapons. And yet, we both know they would not have laid down their weapons. The evidence of this fact has already come to pass." "I know." They stood in silence for a time. All around them angels, devils, and the fallen worked together, digging through the rubble to locate their comrades, or helping tend to the injured. Such a sight would have normally pleased Sirzex immensely, but the immense loss of life that had been incurred this day weighed heavily on his mind. Meters away, a crowd of beings parted and a man, clad in dented armor, and with 10 golden pinions marred by blood, stepped through the throng. He did not wear his helmet, allowing everyone to see his effeminate features and long silver hair. Sirzex was not fooled by the man's appearance, however, and he felt weary as Metatron approached them. "Metatron," Michael said, sounding pleased. "I am glad to see that you are alive and well. I'd heard tell that you fought against Azidahaka and suffered grievous injury." "A mere trick of the eye, Michael," Metatron said dismissively. "Misdirection is a ninja's most powerful ally. I had to pretend I was injured in order to fool that dragon." "I see." Sirzex looked at Michael's uncomfortable shifting and almost snorted. He didn't know what the heck was up with Metatron's ninja obsession, but he couldn't deny it was hilarious. Seeing Michael's expression only made it more so. "I would also like to inform you that I have changed my mind," Metatron continued. Changed your mind? About aligning ourselves with the devils and the fallen?" Metatron extrapolated. "In light of the recent events, I believe it would be a good idea if we had more allies. Therefore, I agree to align ourselves with devils and the fallen." Michael looked like a weight had been lifted off his chest. "I'm glad to hear that. However," Metatron said, causing Michael to eye him warily, "I do have one condition." As Michael listened to Metatron's condition, an incredulous expression, "What the fuck?" kind of expression on his face, Sirzex couldn't quite contain his laugh. It seemed there would be some interesting times ahead. Devil Ninja, this conversation had been coming for a while now. Naruto knew that he and Rias needed to talk. Regardless of what happened during the battle, what happened before now couldn't be ignored or swept under the rug. Besides, Naruto had never been the kind of person to run away from his problems unless those problems included a horde of angry women trying to kill him because he and Jiraiya had been caught peeping. In those instances, running away was perfectly acceptable. A blue sky marked what was going to be a beautiful day. He and Rias strolled through a park located several kilometers from their home. Green trees lined either side. Flowers bloomed, a multitude of colors and gentle fragrances. No one else was around. Neither of them wanted anyone else butting in on this conversation. He looked at Rias to see that she was also staring at him. They held eye contact for a second, and then both of them looked away. Well, Naruto thought sarcastically, this isn't awkward at all. He and Rias glanced at each other again. When they caught the other staring, they both looked away, again. This is so pathetic. I need to say something. Things couldn't progress as they were. One of them had to take that first step. This problem had arisen from his mistake, so it was up to him to man up and be the first to admit that he was wrong. Naruto sucked in a deep breath. I'm sorry, they said at the same time. Both of them looked at each other in surprise, then broke down into laughter. Naruto had to admit, it felt rather liberating to laugh like that with Rias, especially after what had happened. I'm sorry about what happened, Naruto said, wiping a few stray tears of mirth from his eyes. I know I shouldn't have left without saying anything. And I'm sorry about being so angry, Rias also apologized. I should have talked things over with you, but I let my anger and jealousy get the best of me. Jealousy? Naruto furrowed his brow. Why would you be jealous? Rias stared at her boyfriend for several seconds before realizing that he truly didn't know what she was talking about. Never mind. She shook her head. Anyway, I apologize for lashing out at you instead of talking it over. I guess I'm still a little insecure about our relationship. Why are you insecure about our relationship? It's just, this is the first relationship I've ever been in. Rias blushed, as if embarrassed about her admittance. Because of my status, I was never able to just date people. And I couldn't date anyone at school either. All the students saw me as was one of the two great ladies. I was never just Rias with them, and I wanted to date someone who saw me for me. It was understandable. In fact, Naruto could understand her reasoning better than most people would think. All his life, he'd been treated like a pariah, however, it wasn't like those people had been treating him, Naruto Uzumaki, as a pariah. No, they'd been treating the Kyuubi Jinchuriki as the pariah. He hadn't been hated because of who he was, but what he was. In that same way, none of the people loved Rias because she was Rias Gremory. They loved her because she was either the heiress to the Gremory household, or because she was one of the two great ladies of Kuo Academy. While their circumstances couldn't have been more different, in some ways, their desire to be seen for who they were was the same. Rias's situation actually reminded him a lot of Konohamaru. The third Hokage's grandson had never been seen as himself, never as Konohamaru. Instead, everyone had only seen him as the honorable grandson of the third Hokage. Much like Naruto, Konohamaru had sought recognition from the village. He wanted to be somebody other than the third's grandson in the same way that Rias wanted to be something other than the Gremory heiress. Still, even though I admit that I could have handled this better, Naruto, I need you to realize something. Rias stopped walking. He stopped as well, and turned to face her. You can't just go off on your own like that. I know you're kind of used to doing your own thing, I remember the stories you told me. But you need to get better at this. If a king can't control her own servants, then she is a failure in the eyes of Devil Society. As the heiress to the Gremory household and the sister of Searsex, anything that reflects poorly on me is going to tarnish their name. I understand. Hey, I guess, in the wake of our relationship, I kind of forgot that I was also your servant and not just your boyfriend. I'm sorry, Rias apologized again. That must make this relationship seem unfair to you, doesn't it? No, not really. Naruto shook his head. I kinda already knew what I was getting into when we started dating. I just didn't think about the consequences is all. I think some part of me realized that I couldn't do things like I used to, but the rest was pre-wired toward disobeying orders and going my own way when I thought I was right. Naruto would admit that he'd always kind of done his own thing. Oh sure, he'd followed his Hokage's orders before, but he'd disobeyed those orders just as many times. Maybe those times he'd been right, and maybe he hadn't. Certainly, if he'd obeyed Tsunade and not joined the Fourth Shinobi War, things would have turned out very differently, though whether that change would have been for better or worse, he couldn't say. It didn't change how he disobeyed a direct order from his Hokage, however, which was what had landed him into this situation with Rias in the first place. One thing is for sure, I wouldn't have met Rias if I'd followed Tsunade's orders and stayed on that island. And that would have been tragedy. Believe it, Devil Ninja. Naruto was sure that Murphy had decided to screw with him. Really, there couldn't be any other possible explanation to explain what was happening. Ninja-sama, I will be in your care from this day onward. Metatron stood before him and the other residents of his house, his body lowered into a bow. Standing by his side was a somewhat exasperated Michael, a curious Gabrielle, and a sheepish Irina. All of them seemed uncomfortable by the deference he was showing Naruto. 2 days had passed since the battle against the Chaos Brigade. A lot had happened. The alliance had officially been recognized and signed by all 3 faction leaders. Ko Academy had been repaired and would reopen next week, and Naruto's life had returned to almost normal. Almost. Excuse me, Rias spoke in Naruto's place, mostly because Naruto himself couldn't find the words to say. A cat seemed to have latched onto his tongue. But what, exactly, do you mean by that? Michael, with as much dignity as he could muster, explained. It was part of Metatron's condition for allying ourselves with the devils and fallen. He wants to live here. I would like to train under Ninja-sama. So we were hoping you'd be willing to accept him into your care, Michael finished. There was a small vein throbbing on his forehead by the time he was done. No longer composed, he looked ready to burst a blood vessel. Please take care of me, Ninja-sama. While Gabrielle giggled, Michael looked about ready to face palm. Likewise, Irina looked almost scandalized by the way Metatron was acting. Also, Michael continued, his shoulders slumping as if exhausted, while I know it's a little troublesome, I was hoping you would allow Irina here to live with you as well. Irina? Rias studied the girl, who waved shyly. Why Irina? Not that I mind, but I thought Irina and Zenobia were a team. They are, however, when we offered these 2 a chance to live here, only Irina accepted. I thought I would do my best to help improve relations between devils and angels, Irina said. I was hoping I could stay with you guys to help with that. Naruto needed several more seconds to reboot his brain. The whole Ninja-sama thing had really gotten to him. It was one thing to be looked up to because he was awesome. It was quite another to have someone fawn over him just because he was a ninja. I don't mind if they stay with us, Naruto started, but I'm also not the only one living here. I am fine with Irina and Metatron-sama living with us, Rias said, adding the sama suffix with great difficulty. Naruto understood her plight. I don't care one way or the other, Kaneko added, shrugging. Everyone turned their heads to Revel who, upon noticing the way everyone was staring at her, turned her head away, her cheeks flushed a light pink. If this is what everyone else wants, then I see no reason to deny them. I guess it's settled, then, Naruto said, grinning at the 2. Welcome to the family. Family, Metatron, Seraph of Heaven, the voice of God, one of the most powerful angels in the world. Began crying. Metatron? Naruto asked, a little freaked out by how the angel was acting. Ninja-sama has called me, family, is he going to be okay? Naruto asked Michael, who merely sighed in response. He's even more of a flake than the perv, Kaneko added. Should an angel really be acting like this? Revel asked no one in particular. Naruto wanted to ask the same question, but he supposed that, just like Ninja, there were all types of angels out there, hard though that was to believe. He kind of assumed all angels would be a bunch of stiff, overly formal people wearing robes and stuff. Perhaps this would be a good lesson about never judging an angel by his robes? Well, he could worry about that later. Come on. Let's get you 2 a room, then we can show you around the house, Naruto said, grabbing Irina's small suitcase, which likely contained her clothes and necessities. She thanked him with a smile, and the group set off. Devil Ninja. Naruto woke up that night to the warmth of his naked girlfriend snuggling into his side and a loli standing above him. After he and the others finished showing Metatron and Irina to their rooms, they'd been given a tour of the house. Irina was already familiar with the place, but it had given her a chance to catch up with the others, and Naruto finally got to actually speak with the girl for an extended period of time. Afterward, they ate a quick dinner and then, Wait. What? Naruto blinked the sleep out of his eyes to see that, indeed, there was a loli sitting on top of him. He couldn't remember there being a loli when he went to sleep, however, which meant she must have come in some time during the night. "Office?" he murmured, rubbing one of his eyes. "They're here," Office said simply. Naruto stared at her for several seconds, uncomprehending, before he realized who they were. "Right. Give me a minute to get dressed." Office got off the bed. Naruto stood up and put on a pair of pants. He then shook Rias awake. "Naruto," Rias mumbled, cutely rubbing her eyes. "Why are you waking me up? It's still early. Come back to bed."
"Sorry, there are some people here to meet me, and I didn't want to keep them a secret from you."
Rias seemed to sense something in his tone, because she woke up seconds later, got out of bed, and threw on a nightgown that covered her all the way down to her feet.
"I'm ready," she said. "Office." Naruto turned to the little dragon god.
"They're waiting in the living room," Office answered. "Right." As the group walked down through a long wooden path, Rias turned to Office. "So, you really are Office?" "I am. Why are you so short?" "Why are your breasts so big?" "HMPH, that is not much of an insult."
Were we being insulted? Office asked in honest confusion. I didn't know.
You don't talk to people that much, do you?" "I prefer living in solitude." Naruto shook his head as he listened to the conversation behind him. Office said that, but he was sure she didn't mean it. She'd probably never had people to rely on, or people to care about. He couldn't count the Chaos Brigade, since they were just using her. She needs someone to show her that there's more to life than simply living. And he would be that person. Naruto couldn't stand seeing someone who was lonely and didn't even realize it. They entered the living room to discover 5 people waiting for them. "You?" Rias glared at Biku, who was lounging on their couch. "Heya, Red." Biku grinned as he waved at her. "How ya doing?"
"Be nice to my girlfriend, Baiko, or I'll do to you what I did to Arthur."
Biku's grin widened. "What, you'll dye my hair bright pink or you'll replace all my underwear with G-strings?" "Both. Don't talk about me like I'm not even here." Arthur lost his composure and shouted. "I take it these are the people you were talking about?" Rias asked. "Yep." Rias huffed at his words. She must have still been miffed by her battle with Biku. Biku wasn't the only person in their living room. Arthur stood near the entrance, leaning against the wall, his arms crossed and his face red. Valley sat in a chair, his expression relaxed, while Kuroka lay on the ground, her kimono parting to reveal her insatiable bust. Naruto-sama, a brightly beaming Lefei rushed up to him. "Oh, Fei-chan." Naruto grinned at the girl who exuded a happy aura. "How are you? I heard you and your brother got into a fight with Kiba, Irina and Xenovia." "Yeah, but don't worry. We made sure no one got hurt, just like you asked." "I'm glad to hear that," Naruto said. "Naruto," Rias interrupted. "Perhaps you could explain why these people are here." "Right." Naruto coughed into his hand. "Valley and the others are members of the Chaos Brigade. But unlike the Devil and Hero factions, they're on Office's side, so they only listen to her. I asked them for a favor because I had a feeling the Chaos Brigade would try something." "And that favor was attacking us?" Rias asked, raising an eyebrow. "Actually, it was getting everyone out of the way so I didn't have to worry about you getting injured if I had to go all out. It was also for eyes." "For eyes?" Rias frowned. "I don't understand." "Valley," Naruto called out to the young man, who raised his head and gazed at Naruto with a bored gleam. "Tell me, what did you think of eyes?" "Honestly, he was okay," Valley admitted. "He's not as strong as you made him out to be, but he's got room to grow, I guess. If he gets stronger, he might make a good opponent." "Coming from you, okay, is high praise," Naruto retorted. "Anyway, I want you to keep antagonizing him. Having a strong rival will be good for the boy." Valley shrugged. "Sure, sounds fun. I think I understand what's going on," Rias said finally. "You're using Valley to help Eyes get stronger." "More or less," Naruto said. "Valley is the White Dragon Emperor, so he and Eyes are natural rivals anyway. They would fight at some point no matter what. I just decided to use that position to help benefit Eyes." "That makes sense, though I wish you'd think these things through. At the very least, you should talk to me before doing something like this." "You're right." Naruto winced. "Sorry, I'll let slide, just this once." Rias winked at him. Her expression then shifted to one that was much more serious. "And what about her?" she asked. jerking her head at the lounging Kuroka. Why is she here? Because Kuroka's a part of Team Valley. That's not what I meant. Naruto sighed as he ran a hand through his hair. Look, Rias, I know what you're getting at, but there's much more to what happened back then than you or anyone else knows. That devil, Kuroka's master, was a horrible person, and he was going to use Kaneko for an experiment. When Kuroka realized what he planned on doing, she killed him, but was forced to flee soon after because of it. She never meant for any of the stuff that happened afterwards to happen, and she didn't know that Kaneko would almost be executed as a result. Rias closed her eyes, appearing to be in deep contemplation. When she opened them again, her eyes were sharp. Naruto knew this was no longer his girlfriend, but the heiress of the Gremory household. Even if I believe you, it doesn't change the fact that you're a stray, Rias said to Kuroka. Her gaze was harder than diamonds. If these were normal circumstances, I would have had no choice but to slay you where you stand. You say that like you can, NYA. Kuroka smiled languidly, completely unconcerned by Rias's words. Rias huffed. Whether I can or cannot isn't the issue. Regardless, the circumstances right now are not normal, so I'll pretend I didn't see you. How kind of you, Kuroka muttered sarcastically. KKK, I sense a catfight, Biku chuckled. So, what are the other factions up to? Asked Naruto. The other factions are currently nursing their wounds. Lefei told him. The magician faction suffered the most losses. They're going to be inactive for a while. Let's see, the devil faction also lost a lot of people. Shalba was injured pretty badly, too. Last I heard he was stuck in the hospital. The hero faction isn't in terrible shape, but two of their members were seriously injured. Heracles and Siegfried. Siegfried lost an arm while Heracles is comatose. You mean we didn't kill Siegfried? Rias asked, clicking her tongue. Lefei shook her head. No, Siegfried is alive, though hurt pretty bad. He had to get his arm replaced. Heracles should have died, Naruto muttered. I might not have used a full-powered Rasengan on him, but I actually did try to kill him. How did he survive? It's because of their newest invention. Pushing his glasses up his nose, Arthur stared at Naruto with some disdain as he spoke. Dragon powder armor. The magician faction's most recent creation. Made specifically to protect members of the Chaos Brigade from you. It was made by taking the shed skin of the evil dragons within our faction, then imbuing that skin with a fraction of Ophus's power. I guess that explains why my Rasengan didn't hurt anyone as badly as it should have, Naruto hummed. Do you know what they plan on doing next? Lefei shook her head. We're not exactly well liked by the other factions. I think it's because we don't believe in their goals. Naruto nodded. Team Valley was a group who played to the beat of their own drum. They didn't believe in the Satan faction's goals. They would never follow the hero faction and their misguided hatred of devils. Likewise, none of them fit in with the magician faction, not even Lefei, their resident mage. In all regards, they were more like a freelance mercenary unit than a true part of the Chaos Brigade. Well, I suppose we'll just have to wait and see what they plan on doing next. Thanks for coming to let me know what happened, Naruto said. Of course. Lefei looked at him fervently, her eyes glistening like two stars. We're always willing to help a friend. Speak for yourself, Valley said, standing up. I just want to make sure the Securite can give me a good fight when the time comes. KKK, and I just want to have fun. I'm doing this for Sharon. TCH, I'm being forced to do this. As the others stated their own reasons for helping, Lefei puffed out her cheeks like an indignant squirrel. You guys are mean. If you say so, Valley said, stretching his arms. Now let's get out of here before anyone notices our presence. While I don't mind a good fight, I'd rather pick and choose my battles. Saying their goodbyes, Team Valley left through a portal that Arthur opened, disappearing as if they'd never been there in the first place. Naruto and Rias went back to their bedroom after that, and Ophus disappeared, saying something about trying out her new look, whatever that meant. Sighing contentedly as he and Rias snuggled under the blankets, Naruto was just about to drift off to sleep, when Rias broke the process with her voice. Naruto? Yes? About Kuroka, she paused. Naruto could sense her hesitation. What is it? If Kuroka really did kill her master to save Kaneko, then shouldn't we tell Kaneko that? I mean, it could heal their broken bond. Not speaking at first, Naruto contemplated how best to respond. Do you know how bonds are forged, Rias? He could feel her shake her head against his chest. Bonds are forged through an innate understanding between two people, born from the ability and desire to bridge the gap between them. They aren't something that can be done half-heartedly, nor are they something that outsiders should interfere with. A bond not brought about from the heart is a bond that's easily broken. Naruto grew silent, allowing Rias to draw her own conclusions. You think is telling Kaneko the truth would cheapen any bond she forges with her sister? Yes. More than anything else, I want Kaneko to be happy. However, I know that a half-hearted relationship with Kuroko won't give her that happiness. She might become content, and she might even enjoy their relationship, but it won't be a true relationship between sisters if someone from the outside interferes. I see. Rias kissed his chest, for an idiot who acts recklessly. And is constantly holding back in battle. You say some surprisingly deep and meaningful things sometimes. Alright. Enough poking holes in Naruto's poor ego already, Mimi. Rias giggled as she kissed him once more, then snuggled further against him, her full body pressing into his, and her arms holding him close. Embraced with such warmth, Naruto could do nothing but surrender to it. I love you, Naruto. I love you, too, Rias. Smiling as he closed his eyes, Naruto slowly drifted to sleep.